iClone is an incredibly flexible, intuitive, and practical tool that can be used for everything from visual storytelling for indie film and game productions to commercial use and corporate training. With an easy learning curve and a fantastic array of easy-to-use tools for animation, iClone is essential for quick scene creation, character customization, not to mention animation. This tutorial series will guide you through the most important parts of setting up a scene, starting with simple navigation and moving on to tools like multiple duplicate, prop alignment, and material assignment. You can also customize and bring in characters and props from external software using 3D Exchange, which enables a limitless supply of content for your production. Quick and simple animation is the cornerstone of iClone, and also one of its most useful assets. Whether you have experience in animating characters and objects or not, iClone has a wide spectrum of motion tools that are easy to learn and apply. After you're familiar with the foundations of scene navigation and setup, you'll be ready to tackle the concepts of lighting and camera work to bring out the details in your scene and give your production a more professional polish. Whether you're a beginner to the world of animation in CG, or you're looking for a powerful yet simple tool to cut down on your production time, iClone has the solution for you.
Hello and welcome to the Reallusion tutorial on creating game characters using the iClone Character Creator and the iClone Animation Pipeline. We'll be taking our characters into Unity today and showing you how you can create a character from scratch, animate it, and bring it all the way through into your game engine. So we'll get started here with Reallusion's tool, the iClone Character Creator, and today I'll be showing you how you can utilize this tool to really build up characters very quickly. This is one of the default characters that comes with the character creator. You'll have another option here that I can show you that gives a different variation on a female character. These are all single mesh characters, so you have a really nice optimized game character to get started with on these. And the way everything works inside Character Creator is we can just grab any of the characters' body parts or the bones, if you will, and then you can stretch and you can start designing the character this way if you like. You can also switch directly into the camera and for the face here, and then start working with the face here as well. So you can see just with sculpting, we call this morphing our characters inside the Character Creator. You can just easily start working on those and getting a result. And as I'm doing this, you can see that our slider bars here on the right hand side are also changing here along with the edits that I'm making here with my character. So you can either use the sliders here on the right, or you can conform directly with, or actually morph rather, directly inside the viewport here with these tools. And if you turn the camera angle, you can see that you can get some different results, like if you wanted to work with the actual depth of the mouth and so on. So the morphing tools inside Character Creator are very robust and allow you to really get started in creating your own characters quickly. So these are a couple of the base models that you can get started with inside Character Creator. We're going to take it all the way back though to starting with one of our base characters. And this character that we're going to start with is just our base male character. And for this character, I'm going to load his base up, and this will be his nude base that loads, and then we will be able to decide our clothing, all of these things as we go. When the character gets loaded here, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over here into my morph tree view, and I'm going to select the full body. And I have the iClone Essential packs for morph and skin, as well as for fabrics and cloths in here. So you're going to see all of the features really that are available in my menus here. So what I'm going to do first of all is I want to go ahead and emphasize the physique a bit. So I'm going to turn up the muscular and here, so you can see that just instantly you can get a result doing something like that. But the kind of character that I want is going to be sort of a hero. But he's a castaway also, is my idea for my character that I have. And so I'm just going to work on his physique a little bit here, and I want to make his neck a little bit longer like so, and the feet also a little bit larger there like that. And then we can grab the hands. Again, you can just move your camera around and work on different areas if you want. Pretty much everything can be edited, as you can see. And so I just got a really quick basic sculpt, something fast. What I want to do next, though, is I want to maybe make his thighs a little less chunky. There we go. What I want to do now is go and show you the menu here. We start out with working with our different clothed character bases, and then we can start working with different morphs here. These are all preset content. This all comes with Character Creator. You'll find different instant morphs for strong, male, female, and so on, and head morphs as well for faces. Or you can go the artistic route and dial in whatever you like with the slides or with the different morphing tools here. And so first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to switch on down here to my clothing, and I'm going to select some pants as a courtesy for my guy here. And so we'll give him some pants, and the pants are part of Reallusion's conforming cloth that we've introduced inside iClone Character Creator. And so as we continue to work with the body, the clothing actually will morph to whatever it is that we're doing. So if we want to make him taller, the clothing just kind of follows along with that and stretches to conform to the body. We could also take these pants and put it on a really large avatar as well, and they would still fit. They would just automatically conform, thus conforming cloth. So another thing about iClone Character Creator is we have implemented the dynamic textures with our appearance editor, and this is all powered by Algorithmic Substance. This is a really great tool because what we can do here is we can actually select the genes and then open up the appearance editor for the genes. And I respect the hipster movement, but white belts are not going to work for my character, so I've got, definitely have to fix this. So what I want to do here is go to the very first thing is when I open up this appearance editor, I'm going to go down to this diagnostic. What diagnostic is going to tell me is basically what's going on all of these different layers for the fabric. So if I enable this, we'll see automatically that I've got my red belt is or the red section is what the belt is going to be, rather. And so the red fabric section right here corresponds to that, is how this works. Same thing for the base fabric is black. You can see what's black here. So this is how we edit the clothing in one basic way using the dynamic appearance editor here. So I can go to the red section, and actually I'm going to turn off my mask now, so I know that my belt is the red, and you'll see that I have all of these different parameters available for the look of the belt alone. And so I'm going straight over to the diffuse HSL, and I'm going to pump up the saturation. I'm going to change the hue just a little bit, and then we're going to darken that up. And you can see that now I get the brown belt that I'm looking for. You know, I'm getting exactly what I wanted. And so everything's layered this way so that you can work with it and do nice quick edits. There's a lot of other ways that you can do this too. You can do different effects with holes and procedural dirt. In fact, for the character that I'm making, the procedural holes in the dirt actually come into play. As I said, I'm making something like a castaway type of character. So you can see automatically we've got holes that start to appear when we enable this. And I can change the pattern. So you can see the pattern changes up a bit. And I'll go ahead and change the ratio so you can see maybe a little more, and then certainly the spread, like so, and spread it out a little more. And again, you can take your camera and pan it around and see. So if your character needs to have some damage dealt, you can also do some fading around the side, or around the edges there, rather. And if your character needs to have some tattered clothing and that sort of thing, these procedural tools inside Character Creator are really, really handy. You also have the same thing for dirt. So if we want to add some nice dirt there, since he's potentially castaway, so there's chances are he's likely not that clean. I can go ahead and turn the dirt amount up like that. We can see that now I've got some nice dirty pants there. A little more believable for what my character might be going through. So there. So that's just something really fast using the dynamic appearance texture editor that we can do. There's lots more here that Reallusion has prepared some tutorials that you can go through as well to learn more about this section. A lot of power in that. So let's move on and let's give our guy a shirt. So under the same clothing section, I can just go over here to the clothing, and I'm going to pick just shirt A here. And it's going to conform to his body. There we go. And now what I want to do is I want to go right back to that appearance editor, but this time in the tree I'm going to select shirt and activate that appearance editor. And I'm going to do a little bit of the same thing, actually. I'm going to put some holes in this. I'm going to put some procedural dirt on it. I'm actually going to take a little bit of the saturation out of the shirt because I'm not feeling the blue. And so first thing I'll do is, just like before, let's see where everything's located. So I'll open up my diagnostic at the bottom. I'll hit enable. Now I can see that the sleeves, if I want to change that, that's on the red channel. I've got this aquamarine channel, or the green channel, and then, or cyan actually, and then our buttons and so on. So that lets me know where everything is. I'm going to make a little bit of a global change though here. Let's see, with my basic fabric, and that, and then also take my cyan, because we know that that's like this area, and we want to drop the saturation on that as well. And then we know that red, that was the sleeves, so do that too. And then on the green. So you can see, you can edit everything, even if it's just something simple like, dropping some saturation and so on. Very simple to go ahead and just do that. You can also add decals to this. You can put your own logos on shirts and so on. So it's very easy to do that sort of thing. Now let's give it some procedural holes here. So I've got that open. Let's enable that. And then I just want to turn my pattern up here. You can see some holes starting to appear. And like they'll spread a little bit. Okay, and then same thing with our dirt. So we'll go over here to the procedural dirt, and then we'll just crank that up a bit. And the thing about the dirt that I want to do here is I actually want to change this primary color just a little bit. Maybe make it a little more green, like so. So that gets a base for the kind of idea I have for my character, and gets you a little bit of an introduction on the clothing, as well as some of the procedural tools for dirtying that up. Let's go back into some of the morphing though. If we go back to our character, I'm going to switch up here back to our morph section, and I can just turn on my head here. I'll go to full head, and I've used my J hotkey to get to my face cam here. It's the same thing as in iClone, same hotkeys. And so what I want to do is I just want to tweak some things directly here first. And so like I said, you can alter the face directly with the morphing gizmo, just like this, or we can work with it here. And so I'm going to open up these full head parameters, and then what I want to do is I want to take the face heart. You can see how it changes the shape of the face here. Makes a big difference whenever you're working on characters to work with these tools as well to get the right shape. You can see you get a face heavy variation, or something a little more thin. Want a little face there. So you can keep working with it. For my character, I'm going to load up a final character that I've made already, but I want to give you just a little bit of a guide. Like if I wanted to make, for my character, my character needed to have a little bit of smaller lips, and we had a little bit of a larger nose. So I can come out here like that. And then the eyes were much larger that we wanted to make, and a little closer together. So just doing that with the mouse, with our morph gizmo. And then you can also work with the eyes again in this section as well. So if you wanted to make any adjustments like eye angle, we can just do it directly here as well. So I want to move the brow up and so on. And so we can keep working with that, if we wanted to work with the actual textures on the face, the beard, the eyebrows, those kind of things also can be edited. So we can go to the dynamic texture editor and then we can open that up. So you can see the relationship between moving in and out of this to get the textures the way you want them, and then morphing with the character tools as well to get the face and the body shaped the way you want them as well for your game character. And so we can open this section up, and you can see I could go directly to things like the beard is here. And it's so simple to change. All you got to do is change the different type. So you can go to type 1, type 2, type 3. You can see some different looks. You can also import your own custom mask as well for this if you like. Or you can have no beard whatsoever, and also remove the mustache as well if you like to. So a lot of flexibility in your character design as far as that goes. Now, I'm going to load up the character that I've created. Actually, the final thing we did was shoes. If you go to shoes here, you can find some shoes, and we'll give some nice hiking boots to my guy. It's about the only thing I'm going to give him that's going to help him, hiking boots. Okay, so this is how you can create a quick character, and then I'm going to load up my final character that I made that I spent a little more time on and doing the modeling and such with the face. And so I've got that stored in my projects here. So if I go over to my projects and go to template and then go to custom, you can see that I have my character here. So this is where your content would also be stored if you created something with Character Creator and wanted to save it and work on it later, or just use it as a repository for your project. So here's a character that I worked on. I've added some hair to him as well, but same concept. We have the dirtied up shirt, the pants, the procedural holes, and so on. You can see the face I've worked with a bit more, with the larger eyes and more of the heart-shaped lips and so on, that you can do just working with the dials and working with the different morph tool possibilities with your mouse as well. So work around with the camera, and it's always good to look at reference material. I actually used a few different Disney princes to work on this guy's face, and it turned out pretty well. So here's my video game character created in Character Creator and ready now to go become animated inside iClone. So in order to get it there, what we want to do is we want to go up to the top menu here, and we just want to say send character to iClone, and then that character will then be sent over to iClone and be ready to animate. You can also save this by exporting it as an iAvatar. Save that anywhere on your machine as well. But we'll move this character on over to iClone and get started with animation and moving towards getting this character inside your video game. Once you've sent your character from the iClone character creator into iClone, you're ready to start animating your character and getting it prepared for going into your game engine. Here we have the character that we designed inside Character Creator, and as you can see, we've got the procedural holes that are showing through, as well as the procedural dirt that we did. Of course, the clothing is conformed to the character's body style that we created, and I can use my camera keys again here if I select my character, and then you can see the face again as we have it. So we have our character inside iClone now, which means we're totally ready to animate. And whenever you bring a character inside iClone, you're going to be able to select that character, and then you'll see in the modify panel on the right hand side, there are a number of different options that you would have to begin working with the character. And so for animation, we're going to click on the animation icon tab here. And so the animation tab will allow us to actually start working with building animation for our character and getting our character moving. And so there's a few ways that we can do this that really help to fill out the basic needs for a character controller that we would have like in Unity. And so we'll first take a look at our motion puppet. And the motion puppet you can find here on the right hand side of the modify menu. And this brings up the motion puppet panel. And this panel allows you to create the idle's mood, different mood behaviors and reactions, different moves like walk cycles, run cycles, and then gestures for talking. So this kind of stuff is great for like non-playable characters and that sort of thing that you might want to have spread out through a village, a city street, and so on. So here are your different motions that you do have to choose from. We'll take a look at a couple of these. Like if you just needed a natural idle, you could select idle, natural, and then you have preview and record. And so preview lets you start taking a look at the actual preview and the motion itself and do an estimation for what you might need to do to get it to be fine-tuned for your character. And that's what we do with all of the slider bars here. So all of this can be fine-tuned in real time. So automatically I can see I've got a problem with my hand is causing some collision there. So easy way to fix that if I want is to just work with the motion here, and I can raise the elbow a little bit and go ahead and get that away from the leg. So you can work with the motion that way. You can turn up the exaggeration more if you need a more exaggerated motion. He really looks over his shoulder a lot there, or maybe a little bit less. It's just a little subtle. So you can fine-tune these motions the way you want. And for non-animators, this is a really great tool. Gives you something that you can actually work with and start generating motions immediately. For animators, though, this is going to help you speed up doing what you already know how to do best. And I'll show you how you can add your own flavor to that here shortly. Okay, so now let's take a look at a few more motions. Say you wanted to have a character in an idle stance, but looking around curiously. You could use an idle motion just like this. And in fact, if you wanted to have a motion a bit longer, we could just move our playhead out a bit more and then preview that again. And you'll see that the motion lasts a bit longer with more performance. So you can record up to as much as you like of this. And then, of course, adjust things like the exaggeration. If you want it to be a lot less, it's just more of a subtle kind of thing, you could do that. And of course, we still have our arms issue. And so we need to fix that. So we'll go to raising up our arms just like so, and then maybe raising our elbows a little bit and a little more arms and so on. So you can keep working with that, put them back, and then later on we can also animate the fingers and get our hands the way we want them as well. That still needs to be up a bit more. So we can do a motion like this and get loops like that, or we can also do things like getting our characters on the move with motions from the motion puppet for walks and animation runs and that sort of thing. So we can go into preview mode here on these motions, and you can see we can set up a really quick run motion. We can raise up the arms here so we can get them a little bit out of the chest. You can keep working with that and do things like have the character run in a slouch if you want, or more looking up and away, and so on. So you can make the stride longer, you can make the stride shorter. So you can work with the run cycles and the walk cycles to get exactly what you want. So with making characters move, you can also do things like more stylized moves. So if you needed something like an angry walk for a character, then we've got something like this that you could start with, and then of course start to accentuate the way you need need. Like if you need something that's more maybe of a determined walk than a less angry walk, then maybe you want to bring his head up like so, or, again, put it right back down that way with the slider. So you can also save all of these settings. So as you're making a character work and animate, if you like what you see and you're actually building a character for a game and so on, then you can go ahead and save that profile here as well to get all of these parameters so that you can get to them again later on. So just a helpful tip there. So you have lots of different motions that you can do as far as that's concerned. Things like just, your kind of cool walk, a little more stylized cartoon sort of thing. And then you've got, your basic walk that you can start to tune with, or fine tune rather, and so on. So lots of different things there. There are also some more gender-based things that are maybe a bit stereotypical, but you can certainly use those. And then we have things like gestures, like talking and so on. So if you wanted to have like a gestural response, then we've got quick stuff in here that you can use. And you can always record these and mix and blend these together. So speaking of recording, we want to take a look at being able to create a motion that we can use and actually put inside a game here. So I'm just kind of flipping through some of these here that we have, and you can see the different motions that we have for the talks. And then we have things like moods, and just looking for something that might work. And this beginning of this motion right here actually struck me. This is an anger motion, but I really like the beginning of this motion because it feels like kind of an exerted idle. So you'll see what I mean if I stop this and play it again, like here. So you can always find parts of motions that might work too. And I liked this, just previewing motions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to back up the playhead here and just get a sense for how this might look if I preview it with just a little bit. Now, it's not an exact loop, but I'm starting to get kind of an idea, and that really is what I want, because this guy's going to be exasperated whenever he's in the game. He's not real happy with his conditions. So, and this is a fictitious game, but we're developing a level nonetheless, so his fate will be owned forever, so too bad for him. So now what we can do is take a motion, something like this that we want, and I'll even record a little bit more. And then we can preview that one more time. And so it's completely non-linear, which is great with this motion editing, is that you have the ability to, I can even fine tune with the playhead. Now I don't have to get a perfectly loopable motion here because Unity is going to do that for me. So I'm just going to leave this like intentionally kind of not perfectly looped, and I'll show you how we get that in there. Now we can return to the animation tab and then work on the body. Let's do that with the motion puppet panel. Now, I've launched the motion puppet panel here that gives us a lot of different options to start animating our character's full body performance. So I can get a better view of what I'm doing. I'm going to go back and select my character again, and then I'm going to select the forward-facing camera, and this is hotkey F. So when you select that with an object selected in the screen, then it will automatically put it in the center front position of the stage so that the camera can adequately see the selection that we've made. Now, the motion puppet panel here gives us a lot of different options to start working with the character's motion. This is really the fastest way to get characters moving. You have idles, moods, moves, which are different types of things like run and walk cycles, and then also gestures for things like talking. So we can try a few different things with this, and what you'll notice is that we'll be able to preview our facial animation with this performance. Now, just like everything else, we have a preview and a record function here as well, and a lot of different sliders that we can use to customize any of these base level motions. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to move down here to the talking motions. And here we've actually got some motions pre-set up that are used for gestures while you talk. So I'll go ahead and select preview again and try this one.
The life of a castaway is no life at all. Out here, it's all about survival.
Now, that's something that gets a little bit closer to what I want to go to, but again, I can try something else.
The life of a castaway is no life at all. Out here, it's all about survival.
Now that performance is going to work. I think I'm going to keep that one. I'm going to go ahead now and move from the preview section, and I'm going to do some recording.
The life of a castaway is no life at all. Out here, it's all about survival.
That's going to work really well. So now when I preview it, I'm going to make some adjustments as the character is animating in real time.
The life of a castaway is no life at all. Out here, it's all about survival.
Now that we've got our motion recorded, I can just scrub the timeline if I want and see how the motion looks, or I can also just hit the playhead as well as normal.
The life of a castaway is no life at all.
So we can preview that in a few different ways. Now, it was also put on the timeline here. If we scroll down, I can show you where the motion was put. All you need to do is just open up all the track lists that we have here. And with that open, you'll see that we have the motion layer. And I'm going to open that here as well. And then scroll down and you will see the motion layer here. The motion layer, if we drop that down, you'll see that we have a number of different body parts, and all of these are the sections that will be given keyframes for any kind of keyframe offset that we want to do. In fact, I am going to do that here with this character. And so in order to do that, we'll go ahead and turn off the motion puppet panel. And then we'll move down our motion animation options that we have. And this time I'm going to select Edit Motion Layer. Now, the Motion Layer panel will open, and this gives us a unique opportunity to do some editing with the included human IK that we have in iClone. And so this is a nice assisted way of doing the motion edit offsets that you might want to do to select keys or put some keyframes in here to offset the motion animation that we've created. So yet another way to create more custom motion. So when I talk about human IK, if you're not familiar with what that is, I can grab my gizmo here, and you can see if I pull my character's arm, it's just like if I was to tug someone's arm in real life, you know, the body follows. And so human IK assisted motion editing is a really nice way to be able to work with your avatar, and iClone offers that for you directly here inside the software, so you don't have to go out to an external app to do this. So I'm just doing a few different edits here to my character. I'm going to have him just bend down just a little bit there, and I've moved his arms out a little bit like so. And this is all set keyframes right here on the very first keyframe of our scene here, like you can see. And iClone will automatically set all the keyframes necessary for every limb that the human IK has altered as we've done our different edits here. So now let's play this and see how it looks.
The life of a castaway is no life at all. Out here,
Okay, so now I've got my arms out a little bit. They're bent a little, look pretty good. And what I want to do now is you can also turn off the bone setting here if you like. And so that will remove the bones from there. And you can see the hands have gotten a little strange on me. So I'm just going to set a couple of keyframes here for the hands as well. And so I can just use my tools to edit like so. And then also here for this hand, I'm just going to do a little bit of correction here for it. And like that. So now let's go back to
the life
watch.
of a castaway is no life at all. Out here, it's all about survival.
All right, so, and then there at the very end, I really don't need that last little part. I need him to just stop right there. So what I need to do there is just clip that off and just trim that inside our motion section. And that's right here. So you can see that the motion that we have has been applied to the character just like this in this motion track, and then I just don't really need that very end part, so I can clip that off. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to let his arm come to a rest there, and actually I'm just going to select right click on this motion. I'm going to tell it to break. I'm going to break it into 2 different clips. Then I'm going to select the second clip here, and I'm just going to delete it. So don't need that anymore. Everything's good. So now we're over in Unity. Inside Unity, I have a project already set up with a basic terrain and some vegetation that we've grown there just procedurally. So we have just a basic scene for us to run around, and hopefully for my character to be a successful castaway. And so in this scene, you can see we have just really simple setup. I have one camera so far, the terrain itself, where we have the vegetation as well, and then a directional light is all we have in there. I've dragged and dropped my FBX file from 3D Exchange into Unity now, and so we have that here, which we can see. And whenever we have the character brought in to Unity, and this is good for any FBX file, you'll see that Unity will show you all the different components that make that up, and that also includes our motion, which is right here, which is that weak idle motion that we created inside iClone. So everything's packaged up tidy in there inside our one FBX file. So when we select the FBX file, you will see that the inspector over in the right-hand column, if you have the standard layout for Unity set up, is activated. And in this section, you'll see a preview of your model down below, and then you'll see some basic setup info for the model, the rig, and animations. And so what's important here, if we want to make this a character that's going to be used, say, in a third-party game, which is the premise I have here, is that we want to switch this from a generic type to a humanoid. And so that's really important. We can take this and we want to say we want the avatar definition to be actually from this model, so that's fine. And we can hit configure, and configure will actually show you all of the bone assignment or retargeting that took place inside Unity for Mechanim to be able to run the character. And so you can see the character dummy here. This is deep dive. It's really not necessary with character creator characters, and so I'm just going to go ahead and select done because I didn't need to do anything. All you need to do is select this humanoid. So we'll make sure that we turn on humanoid. That's the first step. Remember, you will select the FBX file after you've imported, and then select rig, turn that to humanoid. And then once it's configured, which we have done that, we'll say yes from this model here. It's configured, and then we want to go over to our animations. And inside the animations, we have all of those animations that we would have had in our performance track, which in this case we just had the weak idle, and we can preview it down here. You can see it. Just do its loop there. And so what we want to do is whenever we bring in a motion, you'll see that we actually have all green lights here, and that's great. That's kind of like hitting the slot machine. But what you want to do is typically whenever I brought in my motion, this is what it would look like. And what you want to do is you want to achieve all four being green. And so the way you do that is after you have gone to the rig and, well, I'm not going to do that right now, but I guess I will. Okay, so after you've gone to the rig and you've gone to humanoid and you've done the configuration and applied that, you go over to animation. And in this section, this is where we need to set that loop up. So if you just imported your motion or your FBX like you normally would, this is about what you would probably see. And so in order to fix that, you just want to select loop time and loop pose, both these check boxes, and then just grab the playhead marker here. And what you want to find is looking at all of these different waveforms, you want to find where you can get green on every single line. So you can see right here is about the only area I've got green on the top right here. It works here, it works here, and it kind of works here. So we can make it work. We find the green all the way up and down, and you can see that now I've got green. That means, as you can see, it says loop match. So now I've got a loop. I've got a motion that's loopable, and I didn't have to painstakingly sit there and pick through different keyframes, which was great. So once we've got that set up, you've got a character that's really ready to get in the scene. So now let's go ahead and do that. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select this main camera here, and let's see where that is. There we go. There's our main camera. And I want to take my character, which is here, and we're going to bring that into the scene here in just a moment. First thing I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to start out by going to my standard assets, and I have imported the characters asset folder. And the characters asset folder is very helpful because in Unity 5 they have made this so easy to really customize. And I'm going into the third person character. You also have characters set up for first person and so on, which is really a big time saver. And they have a great learn section on these different character controllers, and I definitely would say that you should take a look at some of those. Now, the way we set this up is under the third person character, we go into prefabs, and then I'm just going to get this third person character here, and this is Ethan. And if you've been working with Unity much, then Ethan is probably near and dear. And so here he is. And so we've got Ethan. Ethan is in the grass. There we go. And so Ethan is a completed character controller. And so if I just took my main camera here, for instance, and drug it on top of my third person controller and parented that, then if we hit play, you'll see that we'll be able to take off, and Ethan will actually take us with him. And so it can be really simple to set up a level that you can run around and have some experimentation with. And what our goal is going to be to do here is to actually take Ethan, and we're going to replace him with our character that we just made in Character Creator. And this is a process that you can repeat and so on and so on. And so we are waiting for a compile here. Okay, so now we have the preview ready. And so I can just use my WASD keys, and you can see that Ethan's more than happy to oblige. And so we've got a third person character. This is your template. And so this is what we're going to use to show you how you can bring your own characters into Unity and start controlling them. So what we do is we go with our third person controller here, and we actually go ahead and we go to our assets, and we're going to go get our castaway character here, and we're going to pull him into the scene like so. So I'm going to get him where he's really right there hanging out with Ethan. Now, I could also just pull him right into the third person controller, and he loads right on top of it, which is the easy and preferred way of doing that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take Ethan, and we're going to just delete him completely. And if you want to know why I'm doing that, the easiest answer is to tell you, go look at the standard assets folder and characters, which you can all download. It's free. And then in third person, you have this lovely note here that's made by the developers, and they show you exactly the steps that I'm talking about doing. So it is a proven method, so to speak. All right, so now we've got our character in the scene, but as of right now, he's only a child to the controller. So if we hit play, it's not going to be the behavior we want unless we want to have T-Man saves the world. So that's not it. So we're not done. So the next thing we want to do is to set your character up. And the reason why I'm showing you these things is because these are all roadblocks that I've hit myself. So these are all areas that are going to help make sure you get your character right. So to recap, we've got a third-person character controller that was a prefab that came out of our standard assets. I put that in the scene. I took Ethan, which is our grayscale guy, out. And I've already imported my castaway character that we made in the character creator from iClone. So he's here. So now what I want to do is I want to actually activate that to use with Mechanim and become my third person character. So the way we do that is we go ahead and select our character again, and we can do that right here in the scene tree just like I did. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to go up to our third person controller, and now you can see the third person controller inspector shows that in fact the controller is the third person animator controller. The avatar, however, though, is still Ethan, and so we need to select our icon here, and then instead of Ethan I need my castaway, and so we're going to select him. The next thing that we're going to want to do is set up the animation controller to include the new motion that we made. So I'll go ahead and double click on the animation controller, and you'll see that we've got a blend tree here. In fact, I'll go back to our base layer so you can see how this works. This is the animation controller that comes standard with the assets from the character folder. And so if we go into the blend tree here, you can see all the different motions that make up what this character is able to do. And there's quite a few. All of these are replaceable and blendable with your own motions. And so all you need to do is take that motion that you have and click and drag it and put it right here. And so you can go to your project window and then back to assets, and then you can locate that motion just like we have here, the idle week. In fact, let me go right back to my blend tree here, project, and then we just click and drag that idle week directly into the blend tree. And then once it's in there, we can go ahead and select preview, and we can preview our gameplay. You can see the motions there now. Here's our exhausted kind of weak idle motion that we made inside iClone. And not only that, but we also have now paired up all of the necessary components to make our character compatible with Mechanim. So we can jump, we can run, we can also crouch if we want, and we can move around this way and move here. We can also walk. So you've inherited all of the capabilities of Mechanim instantly. And so just as fast as animation is capable for your game character in real time with iClone, you also have the real-time capability to control it just as fast inside Unity. And iClone Character Creator is the fastest way to develop your own characters and get them animated inside your games. So for more information about iClone, and more information about Reallusion and how to make your own video game characters, take a look at reallusion.com.
The life of a castaway is no life at all. Out here, it's all about survival.
So you can see that it gets added to 3D Exchange, and then instantly our character starts to perform so we can see how it looks. Now, this character is ready now for us to export out to our game engine. And we do this with FBX. And the way we access the FBX exporter is, first of all, we need to add our motion, which is over here on the right-hand side, to our performance editor. And so what this does is this tells the FBX file whenever we export it that there is animation included with it, so that iClone and 3D Exchange will make sure that gets over to the game engine. In order to do that, you just select Motion Plus and then Add to Perform. Now that gets added to the Perform track here, and we can also rename it. And so I'm going to rename this Talk Castaway. All right, and then you can see that that starts at frame 1 and ends at 639. So it gives us all the information that we need to know how long that animation is. To export our FBX, we simply go up to the FBX icon here. You'll see Export FBX. You can also use hotkey Control X to launch this panel. This panel gives us all of the different settings to export our FBX specifically for the engine we intend for it to be animated in. So this is important, as FBX is sometimes treated differently in different applications. We've already made optimized FBX output for 3ds Max, Unity, Unreal, as well as Motion Builder and Maya. You'll also have an update to be able to send this out to other game engines as well. Specifically for today, we're going to talk about getting this into Unity. So we want to select Unity 3D. Now, what that does is it automatically gives us all the settings that we need to get that optimized output so that our character truly is what you see is what you get once you get over to your game engine with minimal changes. To select the animation and make sure that it goes as well, we want to select Include Animation. And the reason why you might not do that is you might just want to be able to send a model over that doesn't have animation. However, we do. So we want to make sure we check that. And then you have the option to select the frame rate as well as to save as many motions as you like with one take per file. So if you have multiple animations and you want to have one animation file per, you can select this as well. Also, iClone's 3D Exchange will set up the appropriate axis and unit for the destination that you have selected, which is also going to be Unity 3D. Now we can name our avatar here, and so I'm going to call this Castaway Talk 01 because it's my first one. You can save this anywhere you like. I'll just save it right here into my documents. When you're ready, go ahead and select OK to prepare the file. And that's it. Your FBX file is successfully exported and ready to go to Unity.
The life of a castaway is no life at all. Out here, it's all about survival. The life of a castaway is no life at all. Out here, it's all about survival.
Hello and welcome to the iClone tutorial on creating talking characters for Unity games. We'll start with the character that we developed using the Character Creator. This is iClone's new tool for generating rapid characters for your games and use in any kind of 3D development environment. So our Castaway character here we have on the stage, and we're going to get to work with it inside iClone to begin our facial animation. To get started with facial animation inside iClone, we'll first double-click our character on the stage, and this will draw a yellow bounding box around it and allow us to access the Modify panel and also click on the second tab, which is the Animation tab. The Animation tab has all of our options for both body animation as well as facial animation, and then also settings for us to adjust the strength once we've recorded our facial animation. So to get started, we'll go ahead and click on the Create Script. This will open up the Create Script panel where we can choose to record a voice, use text-to-speech, and this will also use any text-to-speech engine you have installed on your machine, as well as import a WAV file or a pre-prepared voice file or MP3. And then if you're using our Crazy Talk software, you can also import a Crazy Talk script as well to do your animation. Let's click on the Record Voice, because what we're going to do is actually record some audio live. You can do that with your microphone attached to your PC. This will open up the Voice Recorder panel. And this panel is a standard sound recorder panel. All you'll need to do is record your audio. You'll see the waveform as you record, and then when you're happy with that, you can go ahead and select OK. If you need to do something different, you just press stop and then record again. Of course, you can also play it at any time in order to hear your results before you apply them to your character. Let's go ahead and record some audio, and then you can see how we would apply that directly to our character. So I'll hit the record button, and then automatically my microphone will be live, and then I'll start recording.
The life of a castaway is no life at all. Out here, it's all about survival.
So we've recorded something, then we can play it back and see how it goes.
The life of a castaway is no life at all. Out here, it's all about survival.
Now, if you're happy with that recording, you can just select OK and move on. If you want to record another file and then try it again, go ahead and just hit record. So you can do this as many times as you like until you get a result that you're happy with. So we'll go ahead and select OK and then move on. Once we've recorded our voiceover for our character, we're back on the stage inside iClone where we can preview the animation with the character.
The life of a castaway is no life at all. Out here, it's all about survival.
So we get a basic facial animation and lip sync from the character, which we're going to also enhance for performance. My body motion also needs to be extended so that it matches my voiceover as well. Now, iClone's going to do all that for us. Let me show you how we set it up. The first thing I'm going to do is switch to my face cam, and I can do so by selecting the J hotkey with my character selected. Now that we're on the face cam, we'll have a better look at what we want to do with our facial animation. Again, you could preview this at any time with your playhead.
The life of a castaway is no life at all.
So now we've got a nice look at getting started with doing our animation. So I'll open up my timeline. I'll use the F3 hotkey, and this will open up the timeline, which gives you access to every animatable track inside your project. My character is listed here, and I can open up my character track list to see all the different tracks that are available to me to start working with. You can see that the Vice of Me track is already checked, which allows us to know that it is here on the timeline. So we can scroll down and then see that it is there. Now, if it is collapsed whenever you see it like this, you'll just see an audio motion track. And so what you want to do is just go ahead and drop down the Vice of Me track for the audio that we recorded, and then also all of the lip keyframes that we have here as well that were assigned by iClone whenever we recorded our voiceover. So you can edit any of these. They can be clicked on, they can be copied, moved. You can also double click on any of these as well and then open up the lips editor. So not only does iClone give you an animation base to get started with, but it also allows you to completely customize that into any different type of facial performance that you want. So if you need a different lip shape, say for instance in this section, instead of a T, L, and D mouth shape, what we want to maybe say is maybe like O or something like that. So you can see if I select that, I not only can change it, but I also can change the expressiveness of that individual mouth shape. So you have the ability to do as much deep dive editing as you like inside iClone to really fine tune your character's performance. So let's make a couple of quick edits using the lips editor. I'll go ahead and press play and then isolate the areas that I want to work with.
The life of a castaway.
So right away, I want to get that L in there for the life, or even the in there for the. So the way I'll do that is right at the beginning here, you can see that I start out with a none lip track, which means there's silence, so we won't have anything to play there. However, iClone assigned the TLD here, which is pretty close. And what I'm going to do is actually give it a little more assistance here and say, I actually want to change this keyframe to the, because I'm saying the word the. So I'll go ahead and select that here, just like that, and I'm going to turn up the expressiveness a little bit. You can see that not only do you get the mouth shape, you also get tongue as well. And for things like the, you're going to want to make sure that the tongue is up against the back of the teeth. And iClone already does that with this lip track here. So now I'll go ahead and preview that again.
The life of a castaway.
So that's good. So I've got that. And then if I want to get to the life, that's here. And I want to go ahead and just turn up the expressiveness on that a little bit. And then I'm going to get to the section where I say all. And I want to change a little bit of that too.
Life of a castaway is no life at all.
Okay, so that all section right there, we'll just go ahead and get to that.
At all.
There we go. And so we can see that we have a none keyframe that's been assigned. That's fine because we can change that as well. And so what I want here is I want that heavy L mouth shape. So I want to select that here from TLDN, like we have in our lips editor. So really it's just about matching up the sound that you want with the mouth shape and then editing that. You can do that as much as you like or as little as you like. iClone gives you the freedom to go either way.
Life at all.
Now we've got that all. You can see the tongue roll there. You can watch it again and see how that looks.
No life at all.
So simple edits like that spend a little time and you can really refine your animation quite a bit. Now let's move on and take a look at our facial puppeteering and see how that works. To open the puppeteering panel, we'll begin by closing our lips editor. And then with our character selected, again, we can go ahead and navigate to the facial puppeteering panel. We'll do so by going to the modify and then back to the second tab where all of our animation settings are stored. Again, we have everything here for our body motion as well as face. We started out with creating a script, and this is where we set our base level facial animation. We get our basic lip sync. And then for doing more expressive puppeteering, or for even puppeteering facial animation for characters that are not speaking, then we can use the facial puppeteering or the face puppet panel. So I'll click that to open it. The face puppet panel gives you a couple of different ways to work with it. First of all, we have on the left-hand side a number of facial animation profiles. Now these are listed by the types of actors that we have. Christian and Natalie are both used as the character creator basis, so these will work really well with character creator characters. We also have settings set up for other types of characters if you're importing your own custom character and you want to set up any kind of morphs or blend shapes to puppeteer here in iClone. You can do that as well. To start your facial puppeteering, you can decide to either work with one of the profiles by selecting them, just like so, and then you also have the full facial control icons here at the bottom. And these are all set up to give you different types of emotions like general, smiley, angry, and you can see as I click on these that the different settings are going to show up here on my avatar panel. And so this solo feature selection panel is actually being highlighted because these are the settings set up for the facial controls. You can also create your own. So I can select the eraser here if I want to clear everything. That clears everything, and I can select the different facial features that I want to puppeteer. So maybe I want the chin. The chin is actually the jaw. So just for an example, I could select maybe just that facial feature element and then select preview and then the space bar like that, and you can see that I can control the jaw with my mouse. So you can do solo feature edits like that, or you can also do full feature or full face. And so here I've selected the angry, and then I can select preview, again hit the space bar, and now as I puppeteer with my mouse, you'll see that I get different types of anger emotions that are noticeable here on my character. Now all of these can be animated and recorded to the timeline just as we did with our facial animation. You'll get a facial track, and this will be motion that will be blended actually with your lip sync. So you'll have a total character facial animation based on these two different tools. So now let's go ahead and record some facial animation from the face puppeteering panel. Let's do the angry motion like we just previewed. What I'll do now is instead of previewing, this time I'm actually going to record it. So I'll start back with the playhead all the way back at the beginning of my scene like so, and then I can go ahead and then select record. I have my facial profile already selected, and I know that I'm ready and armed to start recording. iClone will tell you to press the space key to start recording. You can also press the enter key for 50% recording speed, which will actually play the playhead in slow motion and allow you to puppeteer in very specific areas with a little bit of nuance animation so that it's very tight whenever you add it to the timeline. So it's a nice feature. Either press space key to go full speed or enter key to go half speed. So we'll go ahead and do full speed on this one. I'll put my playhead back to the beginning, as I said, hit record again, and now I'm ready to go ahead and select the space bar to record my angry motion here on my character with the face puppet panel.
The life of a castaway is no life at all. Out here, it's all about survival.
Now, you can do as many passes at this as you like. If you don't like the original pass that you did, just hit the Control Z for undo and then do it again. Now, let's go back and take a look at it.
The life of a castaway is no life at all. Out here, it's all about survival.
Now, if I want to make another pass at it, I can. So I'll go ahead and do that. This time, I'm going to hit record, and then I'm going to go ahead and, instead of full speed, I'm going to do half speed this time. So I'll hit enter.
The life of a castaway is no life at all. Out here, it's all about survival.
So now we had the assistance of the slow speed, so it allowed me to really get the motion puppeteering the way I wanted it. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn off my face puppet, and I'm going to preview this again.
The life of a castaway is no life at all. Out here, it's all about survival.
So now my castaway is definitely looking like he's got a little bit of anger in his delivery there. So iClone can make it easy for you to bring your character to life. Simply record some audio and then also do your animation with the face puppeteering tool. When you're ready, you'll be able to take this whole performance and send it to your game engine.
The life of a castaway is no life at all. Out here, it's all about survival.
Now that we've got our lip sync recorded, and then also we have our facial animation created with the face puppeteering panel, we're ready to add a little more body motion to our character and then set it up for Unity. Now we can return to the animation tab and then work on the body. Let's do that with the motion puppet panel. Now, I've launched the motion puppet panel here that gives us a lot of different options to start animating our character's full body performance. So I can get a better view of what I'm doing. I'm going to go back and select my character again, and then I'm going to select the forward-facing camera, and this is hotkey F. So when you select that with an object selected in the screen, then it will automatically put it in the center front position of the stage so that the camera can adequately see the selection that we've made. Now, the motion puppet panel here gives us a lot of different options to start working with the character's motion. This is really the fastest way to get characters moving. You have idles, moods, moves, which are different types of things like run and walk cycles, and then also gestures for things like talking. So we can try a few different things with this, and what you'll notice is that we'll be able to preview our facial animation with this performance. Now, just like everything else, we have a preview and a record function here as well, and a lot of different sliders that we can use to customize any of these base level motions. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to move down here to the talking motions. And here we've actually got some motions pre-set up that are used for gestures while you talk. So I'll go ahead and select preview again and try this one.
The life of a castaway is no life at all. Out here, it's all about survival.
Now, that's something that gets a little bit closer to what I want to go to, but again, I can try something else.
The life of a castaway is no life at all. Out here, it's all about survival.
Now that performance is going to work. I think I'm going to keep that one. I'm going to go ahead now and move from the preview section, and I'm going to do some recording.
The life of a castaway is no life at all. Out here, it's all about survival.
That's going to work really well. So now when I preview it, I'm going to make some adjustments as the character is animating in real time.
The life of a castaway is no life at all. Out here, it's all about survival.
Now that we've got our motion recorded, I can just scrub the timeline if I want and see how the motion looks, or I can also just hit the playhead as well as normal.
The life of a castaway is no life at all.
So we can preview that in a few different ways. Now, it was also put on the timeline here. If we scroll down, I can show you where the motion was put. All you need to do is just open up all the track lists that we have here. And with that open, you'll see that we have the motion layer. And I'm going to open that here as well. And then scroll down and you will see the motion layer here. The motion layer, if we drop that down, you'll see that we have a number of different body parts, and all of these are the sections that will be given keyframes for any kind of keyframe offset that we want to do. In fact, I am going to do that here with this character. And so in order to do that, we'll go ahead and turn off the motion puppet panel. And then we'll move down our motion animation options that we have. And this time I'm going to select Edit Motion Layer. Now, the Motion Layer panel will open, and this gives us a unique opportunity to do some editing with the included human IK that we have in iClone. And so this is a nice assisted way of doing the motion edit offsets that you might want to do to select keys or put some keyframes in here to offset the motion animation that we've created. So yet another way to create more custom motion. So when I talk about human IK, if you're not familiar with what that is, I can grab my gizmo here, and you can see if I pull my character's arm, it's just like if I was to tug someone's arm in real life, you know, the body follows. And so human IK assisted motion editing is a really nice way to be able to work with your avatar, and iClone offers that for you directly here inside the software, so you don't have to go out to an external app to do this. So I'm just doing a few different edits here to my character. I'm going to have him just bend down just a little bit there, and I've moved his arms out a little bit like so. And this is all set keyframes right here on the very first keyframe of our scene here, like you can see. And iClone will automatically set all the keyframes necessary for every limb that the human IK has altered as we've done our different edits here. So now let's play this and see how it looks.
The life of a castaway is no life at all. Out here,
Okay, so now I've got my arms out a little bit. They're bent a little, look pretty good. And what I want to do now is you can also turn off the bone setting here if you like. And so that will remove the bones from there. And you can see the hands have gotten a little strange on me. So I'm just going to set a couple of keyframes here for the hands as well. And so I can just use my tools to edit like so. And then also here for this hand, I'm just going to do a little bit of correction here for it. And like that. So now let's go back to
the life of a castaway is no life at all. Out here, it's all about survival.
All right, so, and then there at the very end, I really don't need that last little part. I need him to just stop right there. So what I need to do there is just clip that off and just trim that inside our motion section. And that's right here. So you can see that the motion that we have has been applied to the character just like this in this motion track. And then I just don't really need that very end part, so I can clip that off. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to let his arm come to a rest there, and actually I'm just going to select right click on this motion. I'm going to tell it to break. I'm going to break it into two different clips. Then I'm going to select the second clip here, and I'm just going to delete it. So don't need that anymore. Everything's good. Now we're ready to collect our character and animation to send to 3D Exchange, where we'll prep it for Unity. To do so, we'll go ahead and we'll turn off our Edit Motion Layer panel, and I'll also bring our timeline up a bit here so that we can work with it. Next, with our timeline set up, I want to go back to my Modify panel, and I'll do that on the right-hand side with the first tab. And from here, I want to scroll down and then find Edit in 3D Exchange. This is going to send my character model for the castaway directly over to 3D Exchange, where we will then send our motion to. 3D Exchange is the sister program to iClone that allows you to import and export 3D models to use in iClone or outside of iClone in other 3D applications or game engines. So now our character is imported into 3D Exchange, and you can see that we have the hierarchy here for all the characters, different nodes, as well as another modify panel to continue to work with the character if we like. The idea here is that we want to take the character, have the model here so that we have the geometry. The next step is we'll go back to iClone and we'll send our animation as well as our facial lip sync over to our character to prep it for the game engine. With our character geometry now over inside 3D Exchange, it's time to collect our animation, including our lip sync and our facial puppeteering, and send that over there. So what I'll do is I'll move my playhead back to the beginning of the timeline, and then you can also use the hotkey plus and minus to zoom in or out of the timeline. So I'm just going to zoom out here so that I can basically see everything on the screen that we've done. Here we have our motion, we have all of our different motion layer keyframes that we added very easily, as well as all of our facial animation that we've done. So we want to take all of this data now and we want to send it to 3D Exchange to animate our character. So I'm going to use this collect clip track that we have, and it does exactly that. It collects all of our animation just by clicking and dragging here like so, and then we can go ahead and go to the very front like that, as well as extend it out to the edge there. I'm going to zoom out a little bit more here so I can see everything, make sure I've got it all. I want to get everything in there just like this. And then once we've isolated the area that we want to export, it's as simple as right-clicking and then preparing our file to go. Now from this menu you have a few options. You can either add the motion that we've created to the library, or you can send it over to 3D Exchange. So in most cases, you would probably do both because you'd want to keep this motion for later use, maybe even on a different character. And for this purpose, of course, we'll be sending it to 3D Exchange because that's the path that we need in order to get it to Unity. And there's two different types of motion. There's motion and there's also motion plus. The difference here is motion is just body motion. Motion plus will give us the lip sync, the facial puppeteering, as well as all of our body motion. So it is motion plus everything. So we'll select that.
Hey everybody, welcome to our Character Creator to Unreal tutorial series. In this series, we're going to create a character in Character Creator. We're going to be taking her into iClone and creating some animations such as your idle, your walk, and your run, your basic video game animations. And then we're going to be exporting that via 3D Exchange to FBX format, and then we can import it into our Unreal project. And in the final tutorial, we're going to be creating an animation state machine where we can control our character to walk around our game scene. So let's get started with the basics first. We are in Character Creator with our default character, and we want to dress her up like Lara Croft from Tomb Raider. So let's go over here and we can see what we're going to be working with here. We're going to try and create something similar to this right here with a classic blue and brown there. So let's go ahead and get started with dressing our character first. So let's go to our clothing section right here, and in clothing we're going to go to pants. I'm going to be using some items from the Essential Clothing Pack, which doesn't come included with the free version, just so you're aware of that. You need to purchase it separately. I'm going to be using these low-rise shorts right here. We'll just apply those quickly to our character. And with underwear, these ones come free. You can just go ahead and double-click and add a bra. And after the bra, we're going to go into shirts and Essential Clothing Pack again, and we're going to be using this camisole A. So if you have the free version of Character Creator, you're not going to be able to see this folder right here unless you purchase it separately. All right, so let's give her some shoes as well. We'll go down to shoes here and just give her these nice adventure / hiking boots, whatever they are. That's going to be what we're going to work with right now. And we'll give her some hair really quick, just as a temporary measure. We're going to be applying some different hair in iClone later on. We can just change the color of this hair as well. First off, right off the bat here. We can go to Material with our hair selected, go to Material, change our diffuse color to something a bit more brownish. We'll just click that and go down here to a darker brown color, and we'll change our ambient color as well to something like black. And that'll be fine for our purposes right now. Now we need to do two things. We need to change our character's body shape and facial features, and we need to change the color of her clothing, obviously, because this is something that Lara Croft wouldn't be caught dead wearing with this color combination, I guess. We'll just go with that. But what we're going to do first is change her body shape. Now you can already see a little bit of mesh breakthrough over here with the shorts and the camisole, and we're going to fix that later. But let's worry about the body shape first. She looks a little too feminine for me, for the Lara Croft Tomb Raider she's supposed to be. So let's go over here to our morph shapes. And in morph shapes, we have a body section. And in body section, we have an essential morphs folder, which contains a number of different more advanced body morphs. And we're going to apply this athletic female template right here. So you can see she's a bit more defined when this applies. And that's a bit more of the effect that we're going for. So we're going to apply templates like this. Now again, I'm working really quickly in this tutorial for the character creator. If you want more details on each tool, we have a separate series of tutorials that you can check out for those. For this tutorial, I'm going to be using mainly templates. So we'll just work with that for now. And if we want to change her face as well, we can do that. Looks like her eyes obviously need changing because I believe Lara Croft has brown eyes. So we'll go to eyes over here and apply these brown eyes right here. And we can replace those, replace the mesh or just the material. It doesn't matter because they all have the same mesh in this case. And that'll work fine for our purposes. And let's go ahead and we can go to head morphs as well. A number of different head morphs you can choose. I'm just going to choose this female A just to show you a different sample. It might look a little bit more aggressive than the one that we currently have on the screen. And that's fine for me. And I can further enhance it, just by mousing over. You can see the yellow morph gizmo. If I wanted her to give her like Angelina Jolie lips, I can expand her lips right there. Let's kind of suck in her cheeks there a little bit just to give her a bit more of an aggressive look. And this, yeah, we'll just bring her eyebrows in as well slightly. And bring her brow a little bit forward. Now you can go into the morphs sliders right here, and there's all sorts of different morph sliders you can mess around with. Again, for this tutorial, I'm just mainly using templates as a time-saving device. So you can mess around with these on your own time. And so that's what we're going to work with. There's our Lara Croft. And what we're going to do now is focus on the clothing. So for the clothing, first of all, we need to make sure that the conforming is right. Before we do that, let's give her a little bit of emphasis in here as well. Since she is Lara Croft, she's kind of well known for a larger bust size. And that brings up another issue here where we have this kind of edginess along the right breast right here. And if you want to get rid of that, what you can do is just go in and make sure you have your item selected. Let's twirl this down. Make sure that we have our camisole selected. And I'm going to go up into Edit and Real-Time Smooth. And that's going to really add some geometry via the GPU processing and smooth out the geometry for this camisole. If you go into wireframe mode, you can see the difference right there. If we turn that on and off, you can get a much more smoother geometry. And that's what we're going to work with right there. You can also see that we can't see the mesh underneath, and we're going to talk about that in just a sec. Let's go ahead and work with that. And you can see we have a little bit of an issue down here. Like I mentioned before, the belt loop is going through the camisole. So let's make sure that we select that camisole. To fix that, go into Conform, and we have a bunch of settings here that we have a separate tutorial on. But mainly what you need to do is just press Calculate Collision. And that should take care of most of your issues. You need to press it one more time. And we're good to go right there. So we'll just work with that. Make sure we move around, check there's no other issues on our character. And we're looking fine and dandy. Alright, so we're going to work with that. And let's go ahead and get into changing the colors right now. So to change the colors, we need to open up our Appearance Editor. So let's go over to our Appearance tab right here with our camisole selected and activate Appearance Editor. And a whole bunch of categories appear on the right hand side. To simplify them a little bit, just go to your camisole right here and twirl that down. And you can see now we have fabric, pattern, and all these separate. So let's go to fabric right now, and we're going to be using the base fabric, which is black. If you want to find out which section of your cloth mesh is defined by your RGB map, you can go to Input Maps, Diagnostic, and enable your RGB mask. And the entire thing turns black. So what that means is under fabric, we're using this black base fabric. And we have another tutorial that goes into a lot more detail than that. I know it's a bit complicated, but we'll just go through this pretty quickly. So we're going to be working with the material here. Now the first thing you want to do is go down to Diffuse HSL, Hue, Saturation, Lightness, double click it, and take it back to its default value. And then you can go up here and you can change the material from like cotton to like nylon, wood, or leather, anything like that. We'll just use cotton for now. If we go into our Laura Croft character right here, you can see she's going to look like that. We'll just try and minimize this actually as well. We'll close down our content tab so we can kind of work with both side by side. And you can decrease the density of this if you want to give it a bit more of a textured look right there. And I think that looks fine. Now we need to change the color obviously because these colors don't really match. And let's do the hue something like halfway. I think that should be, we're getting a kind of a blue there. Okay. We need to decrease the saturation there by quite a bit, make it more of a stone gray. I think that works okay. And lightness, we can darken it or light it, I think. We'll make it a little bit more light. I think those colors are fairly matching for me. We're going to add some darkness later with the weathering effects, which I'll show you in just a moment. But I think those colors are matched fairly well. Let's just go down to the low-rise shorts now and do the same thing, activate the appearance editor. And in low-rise shorts, we're going to be working with our black fabric again. We'll just choose black fabric. And this time for the material, you can see the material is like denim right now, so it's a little bit different than the one above it. Let's choose something like this spandex one, because I think it looks a bit more similar to the one that we have. Let's just move our morph gizmo out of the way there. It looks a little bit more similar to the one that she has on the screen right here. And we can, increase or decrease the density on that if we'd like. I think we looked fine the way we were at 8. And let's go down to our hue, saturation, and lightness. And we'll change these values to something like, let's try and get a brownish kind of color right there. I think that looks okay. We're starting to get brown. And maybe decrease the saturation slightly. Something like that. And I think our lightness is too high, so let's take the lightness down as well. There we go, now we're getting some brown in there. Alright, we'll just work with, I think we'll work with that for now. It's looking pretty similar in color to the one on the left. I think we're going to just work with that for now. Now we want to add some aging effects onto this clothing as well. Let's start with the camisole, because we want her to look like she's kind of been running through the jungle. So let's go to our effects under the camisole right here. And under effects, we have dust we can add first of all. You can see I can darken it with the dust right there in various sections of the character's body. And we can increase the edge wearing. Again, you can see that kind of around the seams and around the edges of the character if we increase or decrease that. And we can change the desaturation and the brightness, which we won't bother with right now. Again, I'm working through this really quickly. Procedural aging is a kind of a cool one to add. And we can increase or decrease the threshold on that. Increase the creases, which I always like to do, and we'll just leave that the way it is for now. And procedural dirt, these are all thanks to Allegorithmic's substance materials. We can do all this funky stuff with it, add some more dirt onto there, change the pattern slightly. That looks like she's more like she's been running through the jungle right there. And we'll just work with that. And then we can go down to procedural holes. And if I enable procedural holes, you'll see there's a hole that appears right in her torso right there. We can see through her body. And that has to do with the hidden mesh that I showed you before. Now, if you don't want the hidden mesh, let's just maximize our character creator one more time. If you don't want the hidden mesh, make sure you have your item selected, go to conform, and you can deselect hide inner mesh. And that way you'll be able to see the character's body underneath if you have procedural holes. And we can just go ahead and change the pattern of these holes, something like that might do. You get this kind of these two tears right here. You can change the ratio, the spread, and the fade strength of all these holes right here as well. Something like that. All kinds of fun stuff you can do, which you can mess around with on your own time there. Let's do the same thing for the low-rise shorts. Let's just go down to, let's go down to effect over here. And effects, we'll just add some dust on there real quick. A little bit more. Edge wearing, fine. We'll add some edge wearing as well. And procedural aging, we'll just add a bit right there. I think that looks fine. Not too much. Yeah, it's a little too much. And procedural dirt. There we go. Okay, so she looks like she's been through the blender right here. Like she's been through the jungle. And we'll just work with this for now. And then I want to go ahead and modify her skin as well, because her skin's looking a little bit like, she's been sitting at a computer all day. She hasn't been out in the jungle. So let's go ahead and mess around with her skin. To do that, let's go to Actor and activate the appearance editor one more time. And now you can see we can modify parts of the skin, body, and skin head. We're just going to focus on skin head for now and go to our skin on the head with the head base open. We can change the variation, which I like to do for a more weathered look, and you can see the difference right there from like a vampire to a more weathered kind of look. The variation is quite a subtle yet powerful slider that I like to use. And you can change the tone as well. Make her a bit darker since she's been out in the sun. Something like that will do probably. Now, one other thing I wanted to mention as well here is you can mess around with the eyebrows, which are pretty cool. Want to change these eyebrows, we can go up to hair on the skin head. Under eyebrows, we can choose female A or female B, or we can choose like male eyebrows if we'd like. Or we can choose input, and we can input an RGB mask if we go down to our custom textures here. This is the resource learning pack that comes with the character creator essential pack. And let's go into eyebrows right here, and we have a bunch of different RGB masks, like this one right here. We can apply that one right 3 or 4. I think we'll just go ahead and choose female B, which I think works fine for our Lara Croft character. We can maybe make her have a bit more of an aggressive nose. There we go. Okay, fine. We're not going to mess around with her too much. Now, one other thing I want to do to the face as well is add a little scratch onto her cheek. So let's go to decal for that, and under head decal 1, we're going to load up in our diffuse map. Again, we're going to go to that same folder. We're going to go to decal, and under scar, I believe it's scar 2. No, maybe not scar 2, scar 3. There we go, yep. So this is the one I want, and you can see it applies directly to our forehead right there. We'll choose the normal right there as well. We'll load up the normal and the specular channels. And then what I want to do is just go down to the very bottom and maximize the scale, the width scale right here. And we'll take it down on the y-axis down to here. We can give her a really massive scar if we want. That's not going to really look that good. We'll just leave it like that and then decrease the scale so she gets a nice kind of scratch kind of on the edge of her cheek right there. It's like she got scratched by a branch or something. Maybe offset that a little bit more. Alright, and you can modify the normal strength to make it look more like a scar or like a recent scratch. Something like that might do. And you can also modify the diffuse to make it look more like an old scar or a new injury. And lightness as well has an effect on that. We'll just double click on the lightness to return it back to normal. We're going to work with that for now. And I think that's pretty much it for what we're going to do to this character in the character creator. You can spend a lot more time, obviously modifying your character. But let's export this one to iClone now. Now to do that, we can actually export directly to iClone by using this function up here, send character directly to iClone, or send character to iClone, or we can go here and save her as an iAvatar, export as iAvatar. I'm going to choose this option here because this allows us to set the resolution for our textures. And I want her to have like a very high resolution on her face. So let's go to skin, head, and choose 2048 by 2048. Again, we can modify all the resolutions of these other textures as well. I'm just going to press OK for now, and we'll call her something like Lara Test. That works fine for me. We'll save it to the desktop. And once our character is saved to the desktop, we can press Windows M and go down to the desktop here. You can see we have Lara Test, and I'm going to open her up in iClone. And then we're going to just change her hair really quickly and add a quick accessory to the character as well. So let's make sure we do that. So here's our character in iClone. You can see the nice detailed resolution on the facial skin right there. Let's go ahead and change her hair first of all by going to our Content tab. And in the Content tab, we're going to go to Avatar, or Actor rather. And under Actor, we have a content pack called Hottest Hairstyles. This is available for separate purchase as well. We can go to Hair and choose this low ponytail one, which I think is more suitable for the Lara Croft type look. And you can see both hairs are there right now, so we can go into Scene and take the original hair and delete it. And then we have this one right here, which is a little bit too far back on the head, so we can make sure we select that. Press the W hotkey to bring up our movement gizmo, and just move it forward like that slightly. And that's looking a little bit better. And then obviously we need to change the color, which we can do the same way we did before by making sure our object is selected, going to Material, Front Hair, and changing our diffuse color. We'll change it to something like darker brown. And that looks about fine right there. I'm going to copy this HTML code right here. I'm going to copy that because we're going to be using it for the ponytail again later on. So I'm just going to press OK. You can see the ponytail is a separate item. We'll just use our ambient color and change it to black. So for the ponytail, it's actually part of the same prop or accessory, but we need to go down here to the other material section, the other part of the mesh, and we need to change the diffuse color for that as well. We'll just Control V to paste that into the HTML field and change our ambient color to pitch black again. Alright, so that's looking more Laura Croftish day by day. The further we go along, we don't have a day-long tutorial, thankfully. But let's go ahead and go to our Content tab and into Actor again. And under Occupations Career Roles, this is another item you can purchase from the marketplace separately. It's just kind of a police holster here. We'll just double-click, make sure we have our character selected first, and double-click that. It's going to add on to our character right there. Now you can see it's a little bit off. What I want to do, first of all, is actually detach this from our character. And we're going to go over here to this Modify tab, and we're going to detach this from our character. And I'll show you why in just a moment. I'm going to press the, actually just move it over front a little bit, move it over a little bit. I think that should be fine. Just make sure we don't have any mesh breakage anywhere else on the character. Now, once we do that, what I want to do is reset the transform value. And the reason I'm doing this is because if I modify the position of my holster and I don't reset the transform value, when you export to FBX, it could keep the original value, which you don't want. It'll go back to the original position, which is exactly what you don't want. So we're going to reset transform, and then we're going to reattach it to our character by going here, attach to, pick parent, and we'll just pick anywhere on our character. It chose the waist. We can go to this little button right here and choose the hip, which is what I recommend attaching it to. Alright, so we have this nice looking holster. What we can do with the holster is modify the materials. We'll go to materials here, and you can see right here for holster 1, what I'm going to do is just change the color slightly. We're going to change the diffuse color to something like a bit browner, something like that. It changes the color, but you can see it's still pretty dark because the original diffuse map is actually black. So let's increase the brightness slightly, something like that. Go down to like 10. And this is just a temporary measure. You're going to have to redo this in Unreal later. But I just want to show you a possibility here. So let's change this to like maybe like 15 or 14. That looks fine. And we'll change the ambient color black as well. Now, what I'm going to do here is add in a blend map as well. So I'm going to go to blend, and just to make it look a bit more weathered in my blend maps, I'm going to add a blend map, and you can see we get that kind of different effect. If I up the brightness, or if I change this from blend mode multiply to addition, you can see the result we get there. And then if I choose overlay, I can get a sort of a different result. So this looks more like a weathered, brown leather belt on the character. And that's kind of more the look I'm going for. We can change the diffuse color to something a little bit darker, I think. Maybe that's too dark. I'm not going to be too picky with the diffuse color. Alright, good enough. You can only see it from certain angles anyways. And then we're going to go ahead and add a gun into the holster. And this gun comes courtesy of our developer Warlord. We'll go to props over here, and under weapons, we have a pack that you can purchase from the content store. Again, that's developer Warlord with a bunch of really awesome looking guns. We'll just choose these ones right here. Now what we need to do to separate these ones is go to our scene tab, 9mm static. We can just take our 9mm animated and go up here and detach it from the rest of them. Move it over, select the rest of them, including the instructions, and just delete it. And that works fine for our purposes. And then we'll take this gun and we're going to try to position it into the holster. Hopefully this, is not too long, so we'll just press the E hotkey to rotate it. I'm going to press the / key as well so we can kind of see our lighting a bit better. Hold the / key and click and drag with your mouse to do that, by the way. And we'll move our gun to about that position and try and get it into the holster. I think that looks okay. And there we go. Just kind of poking through the bottom, a little bit over rotated as well. We'll just do something like that. Again, you can press W twice to get your local and world axis, and we talk more about that in other tutorials, the difference between local and world axis. And I think that looks okay. Let's try and move it up a little bit, obviously. There we go. Alright, that is looking fine. A little bit of breakage on the other side there. And we'll just rotate it slightly again to this direction. Slightly into that direction. I think that should be fine. That'll work for our intents and purposes. Slightly over, there we go. Alright, we're just going to work with that for now. Now what I want to do here again is reset transform for that. and then I'm going to attach it to our character's hip. So attach to, pick parent, pick our character. Again, it shows the waist. We need to choose the hip. And we're good to go. We have our Lara Croft character ready to go, ready to do battle with her ripped up shirt and a scratch on her face. And again, this is just in Character Creator. With a couple minutes, you can do something like this. And we're going to, in the next tutorial, create some animations, including an idle animation, a walking, and a running animation. Your basic video game animations. So stay tuned for that, and thanks for watching. Hey everybody, welcome back to our Character Creator to Unreal tutorial series, part 2. In the last tutorial, what we did is we basically created this wondrous character that you see in front of you right here, this Lara Croft looking character. And in this tutorial, we're going to be animating her. We're going to be creating an idle, a walking, and a running animation. So let's get started right away. What I want to do first is apply an idle animation to this character. And to do that, I'm going to be using basically a motion from one of our content packs. To apply that, I'm going to go over here to our animation tab, and I'm going to be using this Mix Moves Female Content Pack. You can purchase this in the content store. It's just a nice place to start off my idle animation. We're going to customize it later on. I'm going to move all the way to the bottom where we have these stand motions. There's like over 200 motions in this pack or something. I'm going to apply stand 04 to my character. And you can see, yep, she applies this nice stand animation right there. And if we press F3, we can go into our timeline, and you can see it creates a motion clip in the motion track of our character. If you don't have your character selected in the timeline, you can go up here and make sure that object related track is selected. You can, whenever you click your character, that will appear on the timeline. Alright, so there's our animation right there. It's looking okay, I guess, but what we want to do is we want to fix this, and we want to add something onto it as well. So I'm going to take this clip, and I'm going to click and drag it over to the right hand side. We're going to modify that later on. Now, what I'm going to do first is kind of create my own idle animation at the beginning here. Now to do that, I'm going to be using the Direct Puppet tool. So I'm going to go into my Motion tab over here in the Modify panel and use this Direct Puppet tool. Now this is a tool that you can actually kind of use your mouse movements to animate different body parts in real time. For example, if I take my chest on my character and choose primary rotation and I press space to preview, I can make her do a funky dance like this, headbanging or something like that. But that's not what we want to do in this case. We want to press record, and we want to have a bit more of a subtle motion, back and forth kind of motion. So what I'm going to do is press record and then press space. And I'm going to slowly move my mouse over here, kind of like a idle motion like that. And before I reach the second motion clip, I'm going to press space again to stop. And that creates a separate puppet clip in my timeline. And I'm going to go back to the beginning as well, and I'm going to do the same thing with her head. If I want her head to move around while I'm idling, I guess, you can do the same thing. Press record. I can have her look that way. Have her look over here. And then back to the middle like that. And press space. And that's going to have the overwrite the same motion clip. You can see there's a 0 in parentheses there. Now what we have is we have two separate motion clips which we want to combine together. Now there's an easy way to do this. You can just simply click and drag them together like this. And you can see that now we go from this motion over here, if I press space, to this motion. We can increase that transition area as well by clicking and dragging right there. And what that'll do is that'll create a nice smooth transition into that motion. So we basically kind of fixed everything except for the one fact that obviously her hands are kind of going through the holster and going through her hip there, which doesn't really make sense. So what I'm going to do to modify this, I'm going to actually combine these clips into a single clip right off the bat. And to do that, I'm going to click and drag in my Collect Clip Track right here. Click and drag, left click and drag, and then right click and Add Motion to Library. And it's going to save it to my desktop. It might save to the default iClone directory for you. I'm just going to call this Idle Step 1. Okay, and we'll just work with that. Save it to our desktop right there. And that saves the motion as a single motion clip, which is pretty cool. What we're going to do now is actually delete these two motion clips. No, we're deleting everything we created, but we're going to reapply it. So let's go back to our desktop right here. You can see Idle Step 01, the iMotion file. We'll click and we'll drag it onto our character. There she is. and just apply that at frame 1. And now you can see we have idle step 01 as a single motion clip. Now what I want to do first is I actually want to kind of decrease the length of this idle because it's a little bit too long for me. So let's go ahead, take that idle, and make sure you have this speed toggled on for clip modification, and we'll click and drag it down to like something like 550 frames. I think that looks fine right there. So we have something like this, you know, a little bit faster, and I think that will work fine for our purposes. Now, next item of business is making sure those arms aren't going through the hips. So let's use the edit motion layer tool to fix that. So edit motion layer tool. Now this is for keyframe editing. You can see all these bones pop up. I don't like to have the bones there, so I go up here to bone settings and just take the opacity down to 0. And it's a little bit easier to see what you're actually working with once the bones aren't there. So let's take our character's shoulders and let's try and see if we can do the mirror in this case. And let's bring those up like that. It's not really working. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. That works fine right there. We'll just, use the mirror and take them up using that one blue Z-axis right there, and I think that looks fine. So our shoulders look a little bit better right there, and this arm is a little bit further out as well. This arm on the right, we'll take off mirror, it needs to be rotated slightly, using the E hotkey there to move it out slightly like that. And that's going to be our starting idle motion. That's going to affect the entire rest of the clip. So let's go here and, do something like this. Now she's, idling. And when she puts her hand on her hip, now it's a little bit better, but she's kind of going through her like little satchel there. So let's make sure we fix that as well. And to do that, let's focus in, let's zoom in a little bit on there. And I'm going to open up the motion layer track. And this is going to be for all our motion layer keyframes. We'll twirl it down here. You can see we have torso and head and everything like that. We're just going to be working with the dope sheet at the top here though. So let's just go ahead and double click in that track right there, and that'll create a keyframe. And then right here, where she's kind of going through the satchel, what we want to do is we want to kind of make sure that she's not. So let's go ahead and zoom in right there a little bit on the timeline at this point right here. We'll take her wrist and kind of move that out, slide it to the side like that. I think that looks fine. And let's see what that works out to be. All right, so we're good to go right here. And when she places her wrist on her hip, we need to make sure it's a little bit higher up as well. So we'll just make sure that maybe the arm can help a little bit as well. We'll bring that arm up, and then we need to make sure that we take that wrist back down. Not too far down. Something like that'll do. And again, you kind of get the point that we're trying to do here. We're trying to make sure she doesn't break through her satchel. And she's still breaking through it. I think we need to move this. Let's move the arm up at this frame here. There we go. That should work. So now she'll go like that, and it's still breaking through a little bit. No one's really going to notice in a video game. Again, we're not going to spend too much time on this. But there's our three keyframes where you kind of fix that motion right there. Now let's hold Alt and scroll down to zoom out of our timeline and move to the very end. And same thing happens over here. So again, let's just right here, double click, and at this point, frame right here where she's going through, let's make sure that we take that arm up again. I'm going to be just lazy and take the entire arm out like that. I think that's going to work okay. And then, okay, and then back to normal. And right here what we want to do, because we want this to be loopable. Now this is an essential part to remember. We want this to be loopable, so we want the position at the very first frame and the very last frame of this motion to be identical. Now to do that, what I can do is at the very first frame, right click on that keyframe and select copy. And at the very end, what I can do is paste it down here. So we'll just paste it so it's at the exact same position, and that works out fine and dandy for our purposes. Alright, so there's our idle motion taken care of. Let's zoom out, close down our edit motion layer tool, and play that back. So looks okay. Maybe a little bit fast on the move to her hip, but we're just going to work with that. Alright, that looks fine for me. So let's go ahead, and what I'm going to do is, first of all, load my character into 3D Exchange, because we're going to be exporting this in a couple tutorials from now. And I'm going to go over here to the Edit tab with my character selected, and we have an option here to edit in 3D Exchange. So I'm just going to select that, and my character is going to load up in 3D Exchange. Now, if you have any accessories with animation data, such as that pistol that I had earlier, it'll be removed, all the animation data, which is fine and dandy. And you can see now we have our character in 3D Exchange, and you can, take a look at the character from all different angles. Let's go ahead and apply that first animation though. So we're going to go Alt-Tab back over into iClone here, press F3 to go into our timeline, and we're going to use that same collect clip function that we had before. So we're going to just zoom in slightly on our timeline right here, and what I'm going to do is just click and drag in the collect clip track, make sure it's from the very last frame there. So we'll click and drag all the way. We can extend this by just moving it over here, and make sure it's at the very first frame as well. And what I want to do now is right click and select Add Motion to 3D Exchange. What that's going to do is that's going to add that motion directly to 3D Exchange, and we'll get a preview of what our FBX export is going to look like. So here's our character, putting your hand on her hip right there, and at the very end, there's our loop right there. So again, her movements are a little bit fast to the hip and away from the hip. Maybe we moved it a little bit too fast, but that's okay. You get the general idea of what we're looking at. So there's our custom idle animation. So what that does is it appears in the motion library here under our animation section. So I'm going to select that motion and then select Add to Perform. And in the Perform editor, we need to name this. We'll name it idle. Anything that you export in FBX or iAvatar or anything like that is only going to be exported if you add it to the Perform editor. So make sure you do that. Let's go back into iClone now then, and we can save this motion if we want. We don't really need to worry about it. It's already in our 3D Exchange. So let's just go ahead and frame one, right click, and select Remove Animation from our character. And let's do a quick walk. So let's go to our Motion tab up here. And for our walk, I'm going to apply another motion from our motion library. This one comes for free with iClone 6. It's under G6 Motion Heidi, under Move, and you can see we have this catwalk loop. So this is a nice looking catwalk right here. Again, you can see because our character seems to have fairly large hips, her arms are going through the holster right there. So that's an easy fix, like I mentioned before. We need to do the same thing basically. Select our character, F3, and let's go into the timeline. And right here, before she kind of moves her arm forward through the holster, let's make sure we double click in the motion layer track to add us a keyframe, and the tool will pop up right away. And then right here, where she's kind of moving her arm through the holster, let's take the arm. We can actually take the shoulder as well and move the entire shoulder out, I think. Something like that will be fine. Nothing too extreme. Make sure it looks natural. Okay. And then again, here we can just press reset it back to the original data that was found in the clip. That's what happens whenever you press reset. It adds a keyframe and just resets it back to the original data in the clip. So I think, oh goodness, it doesn't look too good. Let's try and do that a little bit earlier maybe. There we go. Again, it's still going through the holster. So let's take this, take your arm a little bit further, something like that. Okay, so successfully around the holster, and here, again, we need to do the same thing, so she definitely cannot be going through her body like that, so we'll just bring it out again like that, and like that, and that works fine. Okay, so how about the left-hand side? Looks okay. It's still kind of going through the holster. Again, try and keep all your modifications on the same keyframes. I think that's okay. We'll just we'll bring it out a little bit on the left-hand side there as well, something like that. And again, that. Otherwise, it's going to go back to normal on the left-hand side of her body. I think that looks fine. And here it's going through her holster there again. So we'll just add a separate keyframe here, and with this keyframe we're going to move that arm out like that, and around, and here it needs to be out further again, that, and I think that'll work fine. And there we go. All right, now again, like I mentioned, the first frame and the last frame need to be exactly the same. So right-click your keyframe in your motion layer track and just paste that at the very end. So let's test this out. Zoop. Zoop. Okay, I think we're good. There's our walking motion completed. So we'll just quickly add this to 3D Exchange. We don't want to spend too much more time on that. Click and drag in the Collect Clip Track, right-click, and select Add Motion to 3D Exchange right here. Alright, and there is our walking motion. Again, we just modify the arm slightly. A little bit jerky on the right arm there, but again, you can refine and modify that later on. But I think we're looking pretty good for a walking animation to start with anyways, and we'll just work with that. So let's go ahead and press stop. And motion 1 is the one that it added into the timeline, or added into the animation motion library there. We'll select Add Perform, Add to Perform, and we'll call this one Walk. So that'll be our walking animation. And finally, we'll move on to our sprinting animation now. So we'll do the same thing again. I don't want to save this motion for now. I'm going to right-click and remove animation on my character. And this time I'm going to apply a motion from the motion library. And it's going to be one from our Adventure Motion pack. So let's go over here to Adventure Movies. And under Escape, we have this cool Being Chased 01. Now this one has a unique problem where it's actually a root motion. So our character actually physically moves forward in our world. So what I want to do is make sure she doesn't do that. And the easiest way that I find to do that is just go ahead and use a prop dummy. So I'm going to go to props here, just use like a 3D block prop. I'm going to arc, because that's the first folder, and just add an arc object to our scene right here. I'm going to scale that down slightly by pressing the R key and scaling down like this. And we'll move it by pressing W hotkey to the heel right there. And then basically, if I press F3 and go to the timeline with our character selected there, you can see she'll run all the way over here. And at this frame, all we need to do is just click and drag, move her heel back to the exact same position. So that prop just acts kind of as my reference, little reference prop there. So now she runs like this. It is no longer a root motion, and we've solved the problem. So it's pretty easy to do that. Now this run is a little bit of a strange run. It's kind of like an escape run. So there's one thing we want to do here, and that is modify her legs slightly. Because if you look from the front, her legs are kind of like spread out really wide. It looks really kind of strange like that, for example. So we'll do the same thing with our Edit Motion Layer tool again, using keyframe editing. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, just with the character's arms, I want her arms to be a little bit rotated a little bit more like this. And I want her hands to be sort of clenched as well. So we can just click and drag the kind of the palm area right there and kind of, clench those slightly, which is a really fast way to do that. I'll take this arm right here and rotate it slightly as well and clench those hands right there. So then we have this. Everything looks okay. I think everything kind of looks pretty decent up until the last stride that she takes, where her legs kind of separate totally. So here we go. And I think it looks okay up to here. And then at this point, she kind of like, spreads her arm and her legs like that, which are not, doesn't look really that cool. So I'm going to go right here, add a keyframe in my motion layer track again. And let's go ahead and rotate that arm slightly like this again. And I think this one looks fine at the back. And we're going to work from here. So let's go a couple frames forward. Right here is where she kind of really, well, her arm goes through her thigh first of all, so we need to fix that. So let's take this arm and move it out like that a little bit. Maybe not like that. Let's move the forearm out slightly. There we go. Okay. So we have two keyframes set up. This frame right here and this frame right here, which is where her left arm is also way too far out. So let's take that and kind of bring it back in like this and see what that looks like. Maybe still a little bit too far out, I think. I think at this point here, let's zoom in a little bit here. I want here, I think it looks okay, I guess. And then it's going to end like that. But at this endpoint, we need to obviously paste the first frame, but we'll take care of that later. Let's focus on her legs first. So here again, where her legs are still separated, you can see her feet are locked. There's a transform and a rotation lock. The TR stands for transform and rotation. Let's just take the thigh, and if we move the thigh inwards, the foot will remain stationary at that position because we have the lock on. And then here, so I think this looks okay, and then here, the legs again, I think they're two kind of separated again. We'll just take this left leg and kind of move it inwards like that. And this time we can actually take the foot and use the W hotkey, and you can move the foot slightly outwards like that as well, so it doesn't look like it's so much so far in there. And we'll rotate the thigh slightly inwards as well. Let's see what that looks like. So we've kind of fixed that right there. And then here, let's try to do the same thing with that foot again. And I'm going to move it slightly out. It's not so far back. And then take her thigh and move it slightly inwards like that. Okay, so we're just kind of slightly modifying the run. And you can see here, she'll go like really weird because now we've done all kinds of wacky modifications. And at this frame right here, what I want to do is again click and copy my first motion layer keyframe, and right here I want to paste it. That's going to bring it back to the original. So I think right here is looking okay, and let's go ahead and just play that back really fast. Okay, I think that's looking better. Better than it was before anyways. Now one other thing I want to focus on here is we're going to create a constraint, because when I look at my character's head, it looks kind of weird, like she's kind of like looking to the side like that. And I want her to be like, right there for example, I want her to be looking more forward. So you can actually use constraints as well to add animation to your characters. And what we can do here as well is use that same prop, use the same dummy prop that we had before. Let's take it right to the front of the character right here, so she's looking kind of directly forward. And what I can do is have my character look at this prop. So if I select my character, go into my edit tab right here, let's close this down. Let's go to this look at function with my character selected, pick target, and let's pick that little arc right there. Now I want her to look at it very strongly with her head. So you can change from eye weight to head weight right there, but I'm going to make sure that the head weight is at maximum right there. And then we can go ahead and play back, and you can see now she's looking directly forward at that arc, which is more along the lines of what we're going for right there. We still get a slight twist in the head, but that's fine. I think we can work with that. So you can move this to wherever you want in the scene. If you wanted like to move it over here, she'll follow it along. And you can, puppet that in real time if you wanted as well, using the prop puppet tool, which we can talk about in a separate tutorial. But that's about it for this this one right here. Now we have that motion, that running motion that we've modified. Let's make sure we have our character selected, and let's click and drag in the collect clip track, and right click then. And now in this case, we need to add motion plus the 3D exchange, because this constraint, this look at constraint, is not covered in regular motions. So you need to select Add Motion Plus to 3D Exchange. Make sure you select Add Motion Plus to Library first. You need to make sure that we have Bake Constraint Key selected. If you don't have that selected, it's not going to work. So make sure you have that selected. I can just cancel right now, and make sure we just right click and Add Motion Plus to 3D Exchange. Now we have our running motion right here, which is fine and dandy. And we're going to work with this for now. You can see also that the character's hair is kind of going through the chest right there, which is really not what we want. So let's go ahead and press stop. And you'll notice that our character is leaning fairly far forward in this case. Like her motion, she's running pretty far, or she's tilted pretty far forward. What I can do is just modify that slightly by going back here. We'll add that motion plus to the library again, and we'll just press OK. We'll call this run test 01. Okay, and that's a motion plus file. And then let's right click on our character there and remove object animation. Now we can delete our prop, and let's go to our desktop, run test 01. We can simply apply it to our character now. Whoops, there we go. And we'll apply the same motion to our character. And now we have that clip again. If I have my character selected here. Let's make sure we close that down. And now you can see our character's leaning pretty far forward. Let's press F3, go into the timeline, and you select our character manually here. We'll select our avatar test right there, and we apply it, I guess, a couple frames too late. So let's just make sure we apply it at the very beginning. Click and drag that clip to the very beginning there. And there's our motion right there. Let's go ahead and try to make sure our character's body isn't so far forward. Because what can happen in this case is if the hair is going forward into the chest, we can modify it slightly by modifying her position. So let's go ahead and select modify in the, or animation in the modify panel rather. And with our character selected again, edit motion layer tool. And we can select her hip and we can move her hip slightly backwards like this. At the frame 1, make sure you're at frame 1 when you do this. We can use that, or we can keep it at the same, relatively the same position and take her midsection there. Use the E hotkey to rotate it and move her up like that, and use the chest and move the chest up like that. Now her head's kind of looking too high though, so we can select her head and move that forward like this, and then we'd get something like a little bit better like this. Now we can work with that. Again, that's just the way you can modify the entire run if you want. You know, make it a little bit more upright. Let's go ahead and work with that for now. We may have a little bit of breakage through on the chest there, but we'll worry about that later on. So let's go ahead and collect clip again. Right click and drag, or rather left click and drag, right click and select Add Motion Plus to 3D Exchange. And now you can see our character is a bit more upright, and the hair is kind of, not breaking through. It's kind of breaking through the back, but again, that'll be something you have to worry about with physics later on. So this is going to be our running motion right here. You can see from the back, it looks pretty decent. I think we're okay. We're going to be working with this slightly modified version of the run that we previously had, and we'll just work with this for now. So with this one selected, we'll press space and stop that. Let's go ahead and select this motion plus 1 and add to perform, and we'll call this one sprint. Alright, so that's about it. Now in the next tutorial what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating a perform motion using facial animation as well as body animation, and as you can guess, we're going to be exporting that with Motion Plus and importing that body and facial animation into Unreal. So thanks for watching this tutorial, guys. If you have any questions, feel free to check out our forums at forum.reallusion.com. You can also leave questions and comments in the comment section below. We'd love to hear your feedback, and stay tuned for the next tutorial. Hey everybody, welcome back to part 3 of our tutorial series on taking your character creator characters and animations into your Unreal project. In the first part of this tutorial, we created the beautiful buxom babe that you see running around on your screen right here. And in the second part of the tutorial, we created some custom animations for her, including the loopable sprint, which you see right here. We also created a nice walking animation, which you can see right here, as well as an idle animation. And we did this with a combination of iClone motion tools and embedded iClone content. So in this tutorial right now, we're going to focus on facial animations. Let's go back over into iClone here, and I'm going to apply a quick animation to our character just to complement her facial animation. And if you have the Suave and Charming content pack that you purchased, that you can purchase on the content store, you can find it in the animation tab right here under Suave and Charming. I'm going to be using this idle around and stand and stretch motion. And she is indeed standing and stretching. And we're just going to be basically shortening this clip a little bit and modifying it slightly before we do some facial animation. So let's go ahead and press F3 into our timeline here. We have the stand and stretch clip in our timeline, and let's just shorten it by making sure our speed is toggled on and clicking and dragging the edge to about the 500 frame mark. And there we have this stand and stretch animation. And then there's one point where her hands are going through her chest right there. We want to avoid that, so right before they do, let's double click. Let's hold Alt and scroll up our mouse button here first to zoom in on the timeline. And then let's double click in the motion layer track to add a keyframe and bring up our motion layer tool. And then when she ends up going through her chest right there, what we're going to do is just take her elbows, elbow left right here, use the E hotkey to bring up the rotation gizmo and move that out a little bit like that. And do the same thing with the right elbow right there. Alright, problem solved. Her hands are no longer going through her chest, and if we play back, you can see that we no longer have any breakages in the animation. So we're good to go. Alright, so let's focus now on the facial animation. So I'm going to go ahead and close down my timeline for now. And if we want to apply some facial animation to our character for lip syncing, what we need to do is go here to our Create Script tool in the facial section of the Motion tab. And we have the option to record our own voice. We can use text-to-speech, or we can choose a WAV file that we've previously recorded, or we can also use a Crazy Talk script. So the first thing I'm going to apply is a yawn. And I'm going to open a WAV file of a yawn. I can yawn myself, but it wouldn't sound very feminine. Let's go ahead and double click on this female yawn. Okay, so you can see it's kind of a yawn, so the lip sync, automatic lip syncing is kind of struggling to figure out what this yawn is, and it's trying to create these different mouth shapes. So let's press F3 and go into our timeline. And now, instead of having the motion layer track, the motion track open, let's close both of those. And let's open up the Visine track and the facial layer track. These are the two ones we're going to be using in this next section here. And you can see that we can close down our project just to make our timeline a little bit more efficient there. Alright, there we go. Alright, so we have this female yawn clip in our Visine track. And you can twirl it down, twirl it up to see the wavelength and all the separate keyframes here. If I want this to be a little bit later in my animation, so say for example I didn't want it to start until maybe about here when she's starting to stretch, so about here maybe, I can click and drag that simply over here, and then it won't start until that point. So now we have alright, but her lips are kind of moving while she's doing that, and we kind of just want her mouth to be open, sort of like a yawn. So to avoid that, let's just hold Alt and scroll in on our timeline here. I'm going to select every single keyframe in the lips track and delete it. And we're going to delete this one here as well. We'll just keep one, double click on that track, we'll keep one none keyframe right there. And at the very end, we'll keep another one that has none on it, just to make sure her mouth remains closed the entire time. Alright, so, yep, her mouth isn't closed the entire time. But what I want to do is I want to combine this with facial layer editing. That's sort of like the same as motion layer editing with this tool right here for the body. So let's go over here, and when she starts to yawn, I'm going to double click in the facial layer track right here. It's going to add a keyframe. I'm going to press Reset All to make sure it remains at this neutral facial expression right here. And when she starts yawning, which is right about here, I'm going to take her chin, click the chin there, and click and drag and open her mouth like that. So how wide we want her yawn to be, that's really up to us. We can just do it something like that. And then I also want to press the erase key, and we're going to take her lower eyelids and click and drag and move those up like this. We can do it a couple times. And we'll take the upper eyelids and move those down slightly. So she's like, this is making me want to yawn just doing this. And we can use the erase tool again, and then click her head and kind of like bring her eyebrows up like that. Alright, that looks like the face of a person who's yawning. So we have this like that, and then maybe we'll make it last to about here. Let's see. So right here she starts going at this little wavelength right here. So let's go ahead and right click on that keyframe. We'll copy it for as long as we want this to be in place. So maybe about there. And then we'll paste it. And then here, I can just go ahead here and press Reset All. And that'll make her everything return to normal. She's blinking, I believe. Yep, she's blinking right there. That's why her eyes were closed. It's kind of scared there. Okay, so now we have this a little bit too fast, actually. So I want to kind of like maybe blend it in a bit more. So I'll take this keyframe and bring it back over here. It's a little bit too fast as well. So do something like this. Alright, and that's basically all we're going to do for this. We have that little expression right there, and we can have here, we can maybe take her eyebrows down a little bit if we wanted to. Let's just go here in the middle of her eyes and, like that. We can bring them up maybe a little bit like that. And give her a little bit of a smile as well. Like that. Alright, so here to here, she's going, and then we'll just at the very end of it reset all again, and so like that, and back to normal. All right, so there's our yawn. Okay, with some facial keyframe editing combined with, well, not really a lip sync at this point, but after this, we're going to apply a real lip sync to our character. So let's go ahead right here. When she starts coming down, I want to give her like sort of a taunting track. So right about here, we're going to apply a second track, and we're going to go to Create Script again, and open up a WAV file. And this one's called Let's Get It On Whisper. So she's kind of like taunting. Let's get it on. This will be the character's taunt, if you will. And we can, press the button in Unreal to create the taunt, and I'll show you how to do that later on. But let's go ahead and take a look at this basically facial animation right here. So she's saying Let's Get It On. Now, her lips may be a little bit not that expressive. That's because it's a very slight whisper. The wavelength is very low. It's a very slight whisper. And we may need to do a little bit of modification here. So what we can do is just play it back. Let's get it on. I think she says, let's get it right here. So let's pick that let's here, with this K right here. I'm going to double click that K. We're going to change that to like an IH. And we can increase the expressiveness. So here would be like let's right there. So this doesn't really have to be a T, but we can just keep it there because it doesn't really matter. Let's, and then here we want a G. So let's just click right here, and we can change this one to like a K, G, H, or NG right there. And then here you can see the tongue is slightly different. We can increase or decrease the expressiveness depending on how much we want, how much expression we want here. So you can see let's get, and then here we want an eh. So this one works fine. Let's maybe decrease the expressiveness a little bit. And then take this none out of the way. So let's get, here we want a T. So this will be a bit different. This will be a T shape right here. Right here. And I'll take the expressiveness down on that. So let's get it. And we can have like a IT if we want here again, like a eh, and then T. That really depends on how detailed we want to get, but obviously we don't need to be this detailed. I'm just kind of, let's get it on. And then at this point, on right here, we want to emphasize that on a lot. So let's select this keyframe right here and go to like OH right there. Maybe not that much, but maybe something like this. We can even use an A like that. So let's get it on right here, and then here we can take this N and change that to an N, increase the expressiveness, and then back here, we'll just change that to a none, and delete this keyframe at the very end. So now we should have something similar to let's get it on. All right, it looks a little bit better. Let's get it on. Okay, good enough for me. We can even extend that as well by adding another keyframe right here, so it blends a little bit differently. You can see that is really strong, a really strong A right there. Yeah. I think we'll just take that out. I think it works fine with just a single one. All right, maybe just add a little bit more emphasis to that single one there as well, just so we can see it a bit better later on. So let's get it on. All right, good enough for me. All right, so that's our animation, or that's our lip syncing right there. Really fast lip sync animation. You can modify all the keyframes. You can also emphasize the expressiveness of the keyframes as well, all at once, by right-clicking on your clip and selecting lip sync options. Now here you have the option to smooth out the animation for the lips. You can increase the amount of strength on the expressions for your character. There's all sorts of various things you can do. We have a separate tutorial on this. I'm not going to really do much in this tutorial, but you can take a look at how to reduce lip keys and use all these features right here to create a more accurate lip sync in our separate tutorial. Now, when she's taunting, I want to kind of give her a kind of a cocky look on her face as well. Like we're going to take her eyebrow up right here because she doesn't really look like she's taunting. She looks really kind of expressionless. So let's go ahead here, and what we're going to be using in this case is we're going to be using the facial puppet tool. Now, I'm not going to be using one of the preset facial puppet expressions. If I select it, you can see we have all these default templates which we can use. So I can use this, Natalie, which is our character creator, female character. You can see we have the sad expression like that. We can press space and move our mouse around to puppet different facial animations. I believe this one's like, oh, really happy right there. And this one's kind of like an angry expression. So we can, easily just record these. Or what we can do is we can just erase all of them. And we can puppet each individual part separately. So I can take her eyebrow only. And I can just, puppet her eyebrow separately like that. So that's what I want to do in this case. I want her to kind of give like a, the people's eyebrow from The Rock, if you're old enough to remember that, from WWE Wrestling. Let's just go ahead and press record. And first of all, before we press record, let's press escape first. Let's close down our facial layer track and let's open up the expression track, because this is the track that we're going to be adding this information to. So there's going to be a clip on this track after we record. So again, just take our left eyebrow there and
let's get it on.
Okay, so you couldn't really see because the box was in the way, but she did raise her eyebrow, and you can see that right here. Let's get it on. Okay, you can see it right there. And what I can do then is, again, just like basically layer over that. So I'll take the other eyebrow, and I can, bring that eyebrow down like that at the same time. So let's go ahead and press record.
Let's get it on.
Okay, and that created another clip. Kind of blended in the clip information, so now we have like this. Like that. And so she's kind of raising her eyebrow. And to add to that, I can kind of make her give a little bit of a smile as well. I can take both of her cheeks right there and give her sort of a smile like that. Or I can just simply take the one cheek and give her like a smirk like that. Let's get it on. That looks a little bit more cocky, I think. So let's go ahead and just record that.
Let's get it on.
Alright, so I think that might have been a little bit too strong, but let's go ahead and take a look again. Let's get it on. And maybe a little bit too strong. We can press Control-Z to undo that. And then just go ahead and try it one more time. So again, you got to be really careful with this, and you can always just press Control-Z and do it over again.
Let's get it on.
Okay, I think that was pretty good. That was a very subtle smirk, but you can see. Let's get it on. That was not strong enough. So let's press Control-Z and try one more time, and hopefully the third time's a charm here. Press record one more time.
Let's get it on.
Okay, I think that one's going to have to do. So let's just go ahead and scrub through the timeline, and you can see that there, she has a little kind of smirk on her face right there. You can barely notice it, and with the eyebrow raised and everything like that. Now, if you want, you can actually even add on to this further by using motion key editing, facial key editing rather, on top of the expression track. So if I wanted to, we can close down the Visine track right now, and let's go ahead and open up our face key track here again, and whoops, the face key tool, open up the face key track, facial layer track over here, and you can see that now we can, go here, press reset all. That'll add a keyframe right here, and you can layer this on top of your expression. So right here, maybe we want her to kind of want to emphasize that eyebrow even more. So let's go ahead and just select her eyebrow by itself and take that eyebrow up right here, something like that. So now we have a bit like even more expressive. We can just do something like that. And then right here is probably where we're going to like reset all back to normal. And it's resetting back to that original data from our expression clip. So again, we're just, layering on top of each other with different tools. So let's get it on like that and then back to normal. All right, so I think that's good enough for me. We're going to work with this. It's a very expressive look right there. We can look for that in our 3D Exchange motion. So now, the way you need to export facial animation to 3D Exchange is by using the Motion Plus file format, which I showed you in the previous tutorial when we actually did the constraint as well. So let's go ahead and take this, and we're going to click and drag in our clip track. But first of all, let's go to the very end of the animation here. I think it's right here. We can actually open up the motion track to see how long our clip is there. There we go. And right here. So let's click and drag in our clip track all the way down to the very beginning. And I'm going to right click and select Add Motion Plus to 3D Exchange. Now you need to add Motion Plus because Motion Plus includes facial and body animation in the same file. So let's add Motion Plus to 3D Exchange.
Let's get it on.
Alright, so we have our taunt right there. I think that's as much as we can do. So again, I just used 3 simple motion tools to create that facial animation, and that's saved as Motion Plus 2 right here at the very bottom. If you want to double check, if you're not sure, you can always just double click on it. And yep, that's the motion we're looking for. So motion plus 2 right here, and you select add to perform, and we'll call this one taunt. T-A, can't use this keyboard, T-A-U-N-T, there we go, taunt. Alright, so we have an idle, a walk, a sprint, and a taunt. So that's basically it for this quick tutorial on creating the facial animation. I just really wanted to show you a brief overview of the facial animation tools that you can use. In addition to that, how to export it to Motion Plus to import into your FBX later on. Now, in the next tutorial, what we're going to be covering is basically all the export settings. All the export settings for exporting from 3D Exchange, and in addition to that, all the import settings for getting your character properly into Unreal. So thanks for watching this tutorial, guys. Hopefully you learned a lot, and make sure you check out our forums at forum.reallusion.com again. And if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them in the comment section below. And I'll see you next time. Hey everybody, welcome back to the second last part of this tutorial series, the Character Creator to Unreal tutorial series. In this tutorial, what we're going to be doing is exporting our character into FBX format and finally importing it into Unreal, and then messing around with the materials a little bit, making sure we're getting the best results. So first of all, what you want to do is make sure that you have all the motions you want to export in your Perform editor. So I have this taunt motion that we just created in the last tutorial. If I play it back, you see we get some nice facial animation there. And our character's going to give a nice taunt there. Alright, so that's the motion we're going to export along with our walk, idle, and sprint. So let's go ahead up to FBX export. And you can also use a Control X hotkey. And file name, we're going to call this character Tomb Lady. Oh, let's capitalize that. Tomb Lady. There we go. Now, in order to export into Unreal, we need to include the geometry. We can also use a target tool preset here for the game engine Unreal. And we're going to export our geometry separately from the motions. So I'm going to deselect include animation for the first export. And we also have the options with the new version of 3D Exchange to remove hidden mesh. We covered that in the first tutorial where you can actually remove the character's skin underneath the clothing. So it's saving some resources there. We also have the option to remove head opacity, which fixes a lot of the head opacity map issues. But we won't select any of these right now because I'm going to show you how to manually fix the second one anyways in Unreal later on. So let's just go ahead and include the geometry for this particular export. I'm going to save it to a folder on my desktop called Temporary Motions, and I'll just go ahead and press OK. And this round we're just exporting the geometry again, successfully exported. Good, so let's go ahead and export again, and this time we're going to select Include Animation. And we're going to select Save One Take Per File. Let's keep the naming consistent as well. We'll call it Tomb Lady again. And make sure, of course, that you have Save One Take Per File selected. Now, in 6.2, you need to select Include Geometry. However, in future versions, we will do away with the need to select to include the geometry. That will maybe be in 6.3. So in the future, if you're looking at this from the future, you may not need to select this if you're using 6.3 or above. Anyway, so let's go ahead and export all of those motions to our temp motions folder again. So this is going to export those 4 separate motions. And after this is finished, we will no longer need to be in 3D Exchange, and everything will be exclusively in Unreal. So I think we have one more to go. There we go. Successfully exported. So let's go ahead and close 3D Exchange down. We don't need to save it. So here we are in our Unreal project, and this is a Dirty Lobby scene asset from one of our developers, Dexsoft. You can find this in the marketplace. I may put it in the description below as well. A nice looking Dirty Lobby, and kind of got some sun coming through the windows there. Anyway, so what we're going to do is in the content folder, I'm going to right click and select a new folder. And we're going to call our folder Character. So this is where we're going to keep all of our character stuff. So let's double click and go into the character folder, and then I'm going to go to my desktop, and I have this temp motions folder right here, and we have our tomblady.fbx and all the corresponding motion files right here. So what we're going to do first is simply import in the tomblady.fbx. Now we can go over to our Unreal project and just select import over here. That's maybe a little bit easier, and instead of clicking and dragging, we'll go to our desktop temp motions and tomblady.fbx. Go ahead and open that, and then we have all these cool looking cool looking import options. Now, because we're only importing the mesh, we need to make sure that we select import mesh. For skeleton, we don't need to select a skeleton because it's going to generate one for us. We need to make sure we select use to as reference pose. Make sure that's selected anyways. And now what you can do is you can import the morph targets as well. So we're going to import the morph targets in this case. Make sure you have that selected. Now, if you also have import materials and import textures selected, along with import morph targets, it's going to take quite a while to import. You can import those separately if you want. You can select import morph targets and then deselect these materials, and then you can import it again, and you can select these materials and deselect import morph targets. It's a little bit faster, but since we're just going to fast forward all the import parts anyways in this tutorial, we'll have them both selected. It may take about 15-20 minutes. So let's go ahead and just keep all those selected. Now, because we're importing the mesh, we don't need to select import animation in this case. So let's just go ahead with those settings, and we'll select import all. And it's going to import in the mesh with all of the individual morph targets. And we'll come back in a couple of minutes here when this is finished compiling, or when this is finished importing, and we'll talk about some other material stuff. Alright, so once your character is in and everything has been compiled and imported, you can find the skeletal mesh, the character skeletal mesh. We have Tomb Lady skeletal mesh right here. So let's just double click the skeletal mesh and take a look. So on the left hand side, we have all of our characters' materials here. In Persona, we have a number of different materials, including materials for the body, holster, and everything like that. And on the right-hand side, we have all of the morph targets that we imported previously. So if we focus on our character's face, first of all, you'll notice that there's a little bit of an issue with her eyelashes, and her hair is a little bit chunky as well. It's a little bit different than it was in iClone. Now, I'll take a look at that in a little bit, but first of all, let's go ahead and take a look at these blend shapes. So you can see when I automatically, when I start moving these blend shapes, we go back to the original mesh without any textures. And so it's compiling all these textures slowly, and you can, mess around with all these different morph targets to see, that's similar to the morph target we had in the previous tutorial where we raised her cheeks there, and there's a number of different morph targets you can use. And this will basically just compile all the different shaders for your characters. Looking kind of freaky right now here. Anyways, let's just go out of that right now, and let's go back and just import our character skeletal mesh into the project right here. So there we go, and we'll just press the F key to focus on her there, and just pan around here real quick. So what we're going to do first is take a look at the character's eyelashes. So just ignore the fact that she's kind of looking pretty evil right now with those black eyes. They're still compiling. Let's take a look at her eyelash material first, since her eyelashes have already compiled. So what we need to do is find the eyelash material down here. And you can see we have the eyelash right there, material. Let's go ahead and just double click that. And this will open up the material graph for our eyelashes. And in the material graph, we have this diffuse and we have this specular node. Now what you want to do for most stuff that comes from Character Creator when you're importing it into Unreal is make sure you select the main node right here, and then go over to Material, and from Blend Mode, change it from Opaque to Masked. And that'll open up an opacity mask channel right here. You can just connect that from your alpha channel or alpha node to the opacity mask right here. And you also want to make sure you select two-sided. And what that's going to do is that's going to give us masking for our material. You can see right here, now this is our new eyelash material. And if we kind of just minimize this a little bit and move over to the right slightly, we can go ahead and save this. And once we finish saving, you'll be able to see the eyelash update. Alright, there you go. So there's our character's eyelashes the way they should be. So let's focus now on the hair. So we need to find the front hair material right here, which is right here. Let's go ahead and take a little bit of a different view of her. Over on this side, you can see the chunks that are kind of hanging down there. We want to fix that, so let's double click on the front hair material and go into our material graph here. We can scroll our mouse button in to zoom in on our different nodes here. And we'll just kind of place these in an organized fashion. And again, do the same thing. Front hair, change from opaque to masked rather. And then just click on two-sided, make sure that's selected. Take in your alpha channel to your opacity mask there, and we should be good to go. We can just go ahead and save this. And once we save it, we'll be able to see the difference on the hair. There you go. So that's the way the hair should be. We get a much more detailed look for the hair. Now you'll notice that the back part of the hair, the ponytail, is actually separate. And the specularity is a little bit off. Let's go ahead and adjust that at this point. So let's go to our tail material, which is the ponytail material, and double click that. And you'll notice this one is missing a specular map. We only have the single diffuse. So let's scroll in again real quick here and select our tail node and change from opaque to masked and to two-sided and plug in our alpha channel to the opacity mask. But then we can go ahead and find the specular map in our asset manager. Now, if you recall in iClone, basically the hair came in two separate parts, but they shared the same specular map. So what we can do is we can find the specular map for the front hair, and that is right here. You can see it's a specular looking map, monochromatic. Let's just click and drag that material directly into our material graph right there. So there's a specular, and then we can just go ahead and plug that directly in to our specular node there. And let's minimize this a little bit so we can see the difference when we save it. There we go. So you can see the nice looking material on the ponytail as well. Alright, so hair and eyelashes are taken care of. Well, let's go ahead and focus on the character's skin now, because it's actually looking a little bit flat. So what we want to do here is we want to add some specularity to this skin. And we can do that by boosting up the specular maps, the specular texture maps on our character's face. So the facial specular map is right here. We can just double click that, and it comes up with a little bit of a different window this time. And you can see we have all these options here for brightness, etc., etc. What I'm going to do is just take the, let's zoom in a little bit on the face first. There we go. And let's take the brightness on this and adjust it from 1 to something like 20 and press enter. And you can see when we do that, we get a lot more specularity on the character's face. And we get a much more realistic look. You can even see if we zoom in not that close, you can see the pores and the specular highlights, emphasizing the skin's pores and everything like that. So a lot of fine detail in there if you increase the specularity enough. And it really, of course, it really depends on your lighting as well. We can adjust the lighting later. But you can see now the body is retaining the same specularity. It's separate from the head. So we need to find the specular map for the body as well. And that happens to be this one right here. Specular maps are normally pretty easy to find due to their monochromatic appearance. Let's change this brightness to 40. And you can see on the 40, we have a nice specular reflection off of her collarbone. Maybe like she's a little bit sweaty or running. We can also, take that up or take that down as well. And we'll just close down that material right there. And if we maybe just go to our skylight, we can go to our details for our skylight here. Maybe take down the intensity. And you can see the specular highlights a little bit better under this kind of lighting. We get that really nice look, much more realistic than the flat look that we had before. Now let's focus finally on our character's belt. So I'm going to go down to the holster right here. And in iClone, we sort of had an aged brown-looking holster belt thing going on. So let's find our holster material, holster 1 right here. And let's double-click on that and see if we can blend something in our material graph right here. So let's go ahead, and what I want to do is, with the base color, we're going to blend in our diffuse map with a blend map that I'm going to import. So I'm going to go to my desktop here, and under production resources I have some blend maps. I'm going to take this blend 02 and simply click and drag it into Unreal, and we're going to drop into the character folder right there. There we go. All right, now we can find our texture graph right here, our material graph, and let's go ahead and just click and drag that blend map directly in there. And now, so we have this blend map, which will show up in just a sec. There we go. And now we need to create a blend node. So I'm going to right click and type in blend. And we're going to be using a blend overlay. Whoops, you just chose the wrong one there. Let's go ahead and delete this one. Blend overlay. There we go. Let's select it with our mouse. And what I want to do is with the plug this one in here to the blend V3 on the bottom there. And we can also plug this one into the base V3 and alt click over here to remove that connection, and then select these to connect them together. So now we have this blend, but it's still like, black. We want it to get more of a brownish color. So because this diffuse is, or rather this diffuse map is basically just pure black, we can actually replace this entire map with a single color. Normally what you want to do is go into Photoshop and brown it up a little bit, but we can actually just take a really quick shortcut here by right-clicking and adding a constant 3 vector. We'll just type in const, and that'll bring up our constant 3 vector. Let's delete the diffuse map, and we'll double-click on this swatch right here, and let's try and find a nice, first of all, we want to make sure we toggle gamma corrected previewing there. Let's find a nice rich brown color right there. You can see the old and the new on the top right. I think that kind of looks good right about there. Nice rich brown color. And we'll plug this one in to our base right there. And now we're going to have a sort of material like this. You can see we still have the normal maps right there with the screws and everything like that. But now we have this, aged looking texture right here. So let's go ahead and save that and take a look at the difference that it makes. Alright, so you can see it looks pretty cool. I mean, the color might be a little bit light, but we can always adjust that later on. I like the look that we have around the holster right here, that kind of aged blend right there. And that's pretty good. That's pretty good for what we want. Alright, so that's about it for this tutorial. What we're going to be doing in the next tutorial is finally applying some animation to our character, and we're going to be creating a state machine and having her run and walk and prance around the scene. And also a little bit more information here. Unreal actually has some really excellent tutorials on their YouTube channel that I'd recommend checking out. I'll put them in the description for this video. They go into a lot more detail in particular aspects of what we're going to be doing in this tutorial and in the next tutorial in particular. So I'd recommend checking those out. And you can also check out our forums at forum.reallusion.com if you need more help as well. And make sure you stay tuned for the next tutorial, and thank you for watching. Hey everybody, welcome back to the 5th and final part of our Character Creator to Unreal tutorial series. In this tutorial, we're finally going to get to move our character around. We're going to be using things such as blend spaces and animation blueprints. Now, just as a preface here, if you're unfamiliar with these sort of tools, I'd really recommend checking out Unreal's YouTube channel. They have a great series of tutorials that explain these really in a lot of detail and at a good pace. They've done an excellent job on creating those tutorials. I'll provide a link in the description below, so if you're unfamiliar with these sort of concepts, I'd really recommend checking them out. I believe Zach over at Unreal has produced those tutorials and has done a great job. So let's go ahead and start with our animations in this tutorial though. What we're going to do, I've created an animations folder here in my main content folder, and what we're going to do is import in the animations that we previously created. So let's go over to import. And I'm in the temp motions folder here. I'm just going to shift and select all of my motions and go ahead and open that up. Now these import options are important. The first thing we need to do is select our skeleton. So we'll select our skeleton, Tomb Lady skeleton right there. And we don't need to import the mesh because we did that in the previous tutorial. All we need to do is deselect that, and then for animation length, we need to change it from exported time to animated time. And then select import all. And that's going to import in all of our motions. And once we're finished importing these in, we're going to create what's called a blend space. And this allows us to blend between different motions, basically according to certain property values that we're going to be receiving. So once we're finished with this, then we can preview them all in our blend space. You can see them appear right here in the animations folder. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to right click now, and I'm going to go into animation and create a blend space 1D. We need to select our Tomb Lady skeleton, and we'll call it CC_blend, just like that. CC for character creator, of course. And so let's double click on our blend space. Now in our blend space, we have all of our motions on the side here. We can preview them simply by double clicking them. There's our taunt and our sprint and everything. Let's go back to our CC blend. We'll double click on that. And I'm going to display editor vertically because it'll be a little bit easier to explain. So we have these values on the x-axis between 0 and 100. And that's basically determined by the speed. So we're going to label this x-axis, we're going to call it speed. So we want to basically create a certain animation, have our character display a certain animation when she is idle, or when she is at a speed of 0, which will be idle. So let's take this idle motion right here, and we'll click and drag it down to the very bottom. So at a speed value of 0, our character will be idling. And if we zoom in a bit, you can probably see a better look at our character idling. We'll just click off there. There you go. And then what we want to do is we want to create a walking motion as well. Probably at about 25 or 50, doesn't really matter. We can just take this walking animation then and drag it to about the 25 point right there. And then our character begins walking. And that's because our mouse is at a value at above 25. If we go down further, she'll slowly transition back into the idle motion right here. We can go back into the walk. So that's basically what a blend space is all about. Some really cool options for blending motions together. A really useful tool. So let's go ahead and bring in the sprint as well. We'll bring in the sprint at a value of about 75. It doesn't really matter. You can always change these later. And you can see now we're blending from the walk into the sprint, slowly blending in and slowly going back, walking, and then going to the idle. All right, so these are useful obviously for things like the PlayStation or the Xbox that have the little joysticks where they're pressure sensitive and stuff. But let's go ahead and just work with this. We've labeled our x-axis speed. We have these 3 motions, and that's basically it for our blend space. We'll go ahead and save it and exit out. The next thing we want to do is we want to create an animation blueprint for our character. So I'm going to right click in the same folder and go to animation and animation blueprint. And we're going to choose that anim instance up there, and we need to find our Tomb Lady skeleton. Whoops, right there. And we'll go ahead and press OK. And we'll call this CC underscore ABP maybe for animation blueprint, for lack of a better term. And we're going to double click in here and open up the animation blueprint. And in the animation blueprint, we have our anim graph and our event graph. The anim graph basically has animation nodes that sample animation sequences. They perform blends. They control bone transform and all that stuff. What we're going to do in this case is in our anim graph, the first thing we're going to do is create a state machine. So I'm going to right click in the animation graph and just type in state machine, and it'll pop up with that add new state machine, and we can pipe this into the final animation pose. This is going to be the final output. And in our state machine, we'll just we can rename it something like locomotion, because this is going to be for our character's movement. And I'm going to double click to go inside the state machine. Now in the state machine, what we want to do is find some assets in our asset browser. The first thing we want to find is our CC blend, which is the blend space that we created earlier, as if you can recall. So we'll take that and drag it in. We'll call this idle underscore walk underscore sprint. There we go. And then we want to pipe in the entry to the idle walk and sprint. Now we want to do one more thing. We want to have our perform motion over here as well, which is our taunt. So let's click and drag that taunt in as well. And we'll just call this perform. We can call it whatever we want really. But this is basically what we want to have in our state machine. And we want to click and drag a condition from the idle to the perform, and then click and drag one back. Now what we want to do here is we want to double click on this transition from idle walk and sprint to our perform. So when does our character do the perform, do the taunt? Let's go ahead and right click this result here and promote it to a variable. And let's call this variable, we can call it anything really, but let's call it press 1 key, because that's what we're going to have. We're going to press the 1 key and our character is going to be doing the taunt later on. So basically, if the 1 key is pressed, then it's going to result, let's close this down, in the perform. That's transition from here to here. And then if the 1 key is not pressed, we have to have a return condition as well. So let's double click here. Let's take that press 1 key in there. We need to get the variable, and then we want to pipe this into a not boolean. So let's just type in not right here. So if the button is not pressed, then we're going to return back to the idle walk and sprint state right here. So let's go ahead and compile this, and we can give it a save right here. And you can see now we have this under our animation preview, we have this press 1 key. So if we press the 1 key, our character is going to do the taunt right here and do the stretch, and let's get it on like that. All right, so that's our preview right there. What we can do now is I'm going to double click and go into the idle walk and sprint. And now we need to create our variable called speed. So in our CC blend right here, let's right click and promote to variable. And here we're going to enter in our variable right here. Let's just call it speed. Speed right there. Right? So speed is going to determine, obviously, what if our character is idling, walking, or running. So let's give this a compile again. And now we have an option for speed, and we can change the value of our speed, from go up to 25, I think, was walking. So 25 would be the walking value right there. And then we can click and drag up to 50, and she'll start running. And then we can return back to the idle pose right here. Begins walking, and full sprint. All right, so we've basically done all our variable stuff. Let's go ahead and close this down now. And our locomotion, our state machine is pretty much all finished. That's all we really need to do for our anim graph. The next thing we want to do, let's just change this back to a value of 0 so she stops walking in slow motion there. The next thing we want to do is get our event graph working. Now the event graph is used to update values used by the blend spaces, and it basically processes data, updates the variables like I mentioned, based on the character input, so the character being you. So what we're going to do here, we're going to run through this. This is pretty complicated, a lot more complicated than I have time to explain in this tutorial. But what we're going to do is basically just go ahead and drag from our event blueprint update animation. So this is kind of like our update. And I'm going to create an isValid check right there. And after the isValid check, we need to pipe this into a set speed. So if it is valid, we need to set and then speed. So we have the speed variable. We can also click and drag in the speed variable from the bottom there as well. All right. And the next thing I want to do is also get this pawn owner thing. The target is the anim instance. We're going to return the value, and we're going to pipe that into our input object. So that really checks what character is being used in our game, and it pipes it into that isValid check. All right, and then let's go from here. Let's also create another connection, and we're going to get the velocity of our character. So the velocity is basically it's a vector, which is the direction and the magnitude. So that's going to determine, obviously, the speed value. It's going to pipe it into here. And let's go from return value, and let's create a vector length as well. So vector length is basically, it represents the speed of the velocity. So this is the speed value. And again, I'm really just speeding through this. The Unreal tutorials go into a lot more detail, so I'd recommend checking them out if you're interested in what's going on behind the scenes here. So let's go ahead and go from the vector length, and we're going to create a float value for the speed. So we can just use float times float right here. And then we will pipe that into the speed value, the set speed right there. All right, so it creates a value, and that's going to be set, the set speed right here. And then what I want to do is also get the player controller. So I'm going to right click here and select Get Player Controller right there. Okay, and from Get Player Controller, this is basically our pressing the 1 key function right here. So we're going to take from return value, and we're going to select is input key down. So our input key, if you can recall, is the number 1. So we need to change it from mouse X, go into here and go into our keyboard and press the number 1 key. So that's the press 1 key. And then from here, we can click and drag, and we want to set the press 1 key variable right here. All right, there we go. That's the 1 key variable. And we can also just, the last thing we want to do is link up the set output from the set speed into the press 1 key right there. And that's basically our event graph right there that we need to do. So we can just go ahead and compile it, make sure everything is okay. We see some red lava pumping through to the isValid check right there. Let's go ahead and just save that for now. And what we're going to do now is we're going to create an event graph for our camera. So to do that, we need to just go ahead and close down the animation blueprint for the character now, and we're going to create a character blueprint now. So the character blueprint is basically going to be controlling the camera and a lot about our controls, our actual input controls. Now, before we do this, I want to go up to settings here, and I want to make sure that everyone is on board. So we'll go to project settings, and we need to go to input here. You need to have these move forward, move right, turn rate inputs under your axis mappings. These come default with the third-person default project with the Unreal that comes with Unreal. If you don't have it, you can open up that project and export it to a file, and then you can re-import it. So if I wanted to import these values, I can do that again by going to import. I think I have them saved somewhere. on the desktops. If you have a chance, go to import and then temp. Yeah, this is where I saved them. So the input backup right here, you can just import that file right there, and it should load up this sort of stuff. Again, you have to export that from the default third-person project in Unreal. So make sure you have all these. Move forward, and these are the key inputs and the scale values that result. Again, there's a special tutorial that Unreal has dedicated to this, so we won't spend too much time on it. And I'll just close it down. So what I want to do now, again, like I mentioned, is create my character blueprint. So I'm going to right-click and create basic asset blueprint class. And here we want to create a character blueprint. So let's just call this CC underscore maybe CBP. I know my name's pretty boring, but there we have our character blueprint right there, and you can see a little mannequin on the icon. So let's just double click that, and we're set up with a physics collision sphere right here, capsule, whatever you want to call it. Let's go to our mesh option right here under the components, and we want to set a mesh. And so let's go over to skeletal mesh and find our character, the Tomb Lady right here. So there's our Tomb Lady, and we want to also make her use the animation blueprint that we created. So let's go to use animation blueprint, and we need to find the CC ABP, animation blueprint right there. And our character will begin to go into her idle state, which is pretty cool. We have her already idling at least, but we need to position her correctly within this collision space right here. So let's bring her down to, I think the value I used before was negative 82. So let's choose negative 82. And we also need to rotate her to negative 90 degrees. So she's facing the direction of this blue arrow here. So let's go ahead and enter in that value of negative 90 right there. Alright, so our character is good to go. The physics collision shape looks A-OK. And that's basically it for the character. Let's go ahead and create a spring arm for our camera now. So I'm going to go up to Add Component and type in spring arm. And this is just a component of the camera that allows it to not collide into stuff. You can see the description right there if you want to read it when you have time. Let's go ahead and create another component. Add another component. This one's going to be the camera. So we'll just select the camera. And I want to parent my camera to my spring arm. So I'm going to click and drag it onto the spring arm right there. And then with the camera selected, I can compile it right there. And we want to position our camera. So in this case, I know it's not really practical for game purposes, but we're going to take our spring arm and camera, and we can just move it forward like this. We can actually just rotate it completely around, since this is the axis here. So we're going to get a front view of our character. So let's just rotate it. I'm using the E and W hotkeys here, just like in iClone, by the way. And we'll get sort of a up and above view right here, maybe 20 degrees up. And let's take it in a little closer, a little bit higher. All right, I think that should be fine. And that's going to be our camera perspective. We can always change that later. So again, we can recompile that. It looks fine. And go to our event graph. Now we're almost done. This is where we're going to do our basically camera controls and stuff. So I'm going to just actually take all of these, and I'm going to delete them all. And what I want to do is, the first thing is right-click and get control rotation. Oops, I typed in two L's there. Control rotation. There we go. Add the pawn right here. So once I have that, I'm going to break the control rotation up into 3 different parts. So we'll go break rotation right here. And now we have pitch, yaw, and roll. And we're going to just take from the yaw, and we're going to make rotation. There we go. And I'm going to hold Alt and click here to disconnect these two, and click and drag from yaw to yaw, because yaw, after all, is yaw. Yaw is kind of like moving from left to right, kind of orbiting your view from left to right. Pitch is up and down, and roll is, when you're rolling. You can probably take a look on Wikipedia or any game site and learn more about pitch, yaw, and roll. We're going to talk more about those later. But what I want to do now is, from make rotation, I want to click and drag, and we want to get our forward vector. Get forward vector right there. It's really convenient. You can just kind of type this stuff in. These graphs are sort of like visual programming, so it makes it a little bit easier. Again, most of our iClone users are probably not programmers, or they may be. Don't want to miss anyone out there, but this may be easier for some than others. And again, you can always check out the Unreal tutorials for more detail. So what I'm going to do now is right click and input axis. So this is the axis that we had earlier, that I showed earlier, and move forward. Now we want to use the axis event, not the axis values right here. So input axis, move forward, and I want to click and drag that into add movement input. There we go. And this forward vector, we're also going to pipe this return value from the forward vector into the corresponding world direction input there. And then we want two more things here. We're basically creating a very, very simplistic control. So I'm going to right click and input axis turn, which is another one you saw earlier. Axis turn right there. And let's click and drag from this, add controller. This one is the yaw input. So like I mentioned before, like you see up here, the yaw input. And I also want to take the axis value to the value slot right there. And we should be good to go. We can compile. Whoops. You can compile to make sure that everything's good to go. It even says good to go. Awesome. All right. We can save that. And finally, what we want to do is create our game mode blueprint class. So let's go out of here now. And let's right click and go to blueprint class again, and we need to create a game mode. So we can just call this cc underscore game mode. I'm being super original with the naming here. So let's double click on this game mode right here, and what I want to do is from default pawn class, I want to select the character blueprint that I created before. So we'll just select that, and that's pretty much all we need to do in our game mode blueprint. And then we'll go ahead and compile it. Everything's good, and we'll save it and exit out. And basically the character that we have on the screen right now, we don't actually need this character mesh on the screen, so we can just take her and delete her. And we're pretty much good to go with one exception. If we go over to world settings over here on the left hand or on the right hand side, missing my sides up here, for game mode override, what I want to choose is go from none and choose CC game mode. And then we're pretty much good to go. I can go ahead and test it out, press play. You can see our character idling. We can move the camera around like this. Back and forth, and if I press forward and backward, it doesn't seem to be working. So let's exit out of this right now, and I'm going to go into my camera blueprint right here, and let's take a look at our, we can actually connect the axis and move forward, this axis value to the scale value there. That should allow us to move forward. So let's go ahead and compile and save that, and give it one more run. And our walking seems to be having an issue as well, so we can kind of float across the stage right here. Let's exit that, and this time let's check out our animation blueprint. So in animation blueprint, looks like we're getting, we need to put a value of 0.5 in our float value for speed here. So we're going to set it at 0.5, and that's going to allow us to have a running motion. So let's go ahead and save that, close it down, and now let's give that one more shot. Let's play it and see what happens. So now we're able to run across our scene like this. Our character is running pretty fast, pretty cool. We have our, whoops, we just kind of went through the stage there. I didn't entirely have a good physics setting on the ground here, so our character might run through the floor in certain spots. Anyways, this is how you can control your character, and we can even do the, we can press the 1 key, and what will happen is we will do our animation. There's our facial animation. The taunt, let's get it on, she says, and just stretching like that along with the facial expression. Now, if we wanted our character to, say, just walk for the entire time instead of running, we can go ahead and try a quick experiment by, double-clicking the CC blend right here, our blend space, and we can just select our motion right there, our sprint motion, by clicking it, left-clicking it, and deleting it. Now, no matter how fast our speed value is, our character will be walking the entire time. So let's give that a save and exit and play it one more time. And you can see now our character will walk. She's walking pretty fast, though. It's a little bit faster than a person would normally walk. So let's go ahead and try one more thing. Let's go back into our character blueprint here. And in character blueprint, what I want to do is I want to right-click and get my character moving here. So let's type in get character, and we can see get character movement right there. So what we want to do is we want to, from this, we want to set our maximum walk speed. So we can just click and drag and then set max walk speed. There we go. It's highlighted right there. And then what I want to do is pipe our input axis move forward into the set walk speed right here. And then we can then pipe this into our add movement input. And now we're going to set our walk speed. We can set it to something like, the value I had before was about 75. and we'll just press OK and compile and give that a save. And let's press play now and see what happens when we move forward. So now you can see our character is moving forward at a pretty slow pace. We can pipe that up to 100. Let's give that a shot really quick, actually. So in our camera blueprint, let's pipe that value up to, pump that value, rather, up to 100. And save and compile again. And we'll press play. And our character should be walking a little bit faster. That's a little bit more reasonable for a walking motion right there. And then we can press the 1 key and have our character stretch like that. Now, the one last thing I want to do here is because we have our character stretching, we don't actually have any sound playing when our character is stretching. So if we wanted to import that sound into our Unreal project, it's actually really easy to do. All we need to do is just double click on our taunt motion right here. And you can see our taunt motion starts playing. Now, at what point we want to play a motion, we want to maybe, let's go to our timeline right here. Let's scrub through. At about here, we want our character to start yawning. Now, before we do this, we have to exit out. We have to import in the audio files that we want to play. So let's go ahead and select import. I actually have them saved on the desktop here. We have female yawn and let's get it on whisper again. Let's press OK. There's our 2 audio files. So then again, we can go back into the taunt one more time. And at the point where our character is yawning, so when she starts yawning, like let's zoom in on her mouth here so we can see a little bit better. There we go. So at this point right here where she's yawning, we want to start the audio file right there. So let's right click up here and I'm going to select add notify. And all you need to do is just select play sound. And then click on the sound. And over here, all we need to do is in the sound menu there, just select the sound that you want to play. So it'll be female yawn in this case. And now if we play back, there's our sound playing in Unreal. And so then we want to add the other one, so the let's get it on taunt. So it starts about here. So she starts with let's right here. And then we want to again right click at that point over here in the notifies, add notify, play sound. One more sound. Let's click on this sound and choose a sound. Let's choose that. Let's get it on. And let's give this a playback and see what happens. So playback right here.
Let's get it on.
All right, perfect. All right, so that's basically how you can just play your sounds as part of your motion. Really easy to do. So let's go ahead and save this and close out. Let's play back one more time. So we have our character again, just casually, walking through this stage. And then we can have, let's get her where she's kind of facing the light a little bit. There we go. And press the 1 hotkey.
Let's get it on.
All right, and then we can continue walking and walk right off the plank. So that about wraps it up for this tutorial series. Thanks so much, guys, for watching, and hopefully you learned a lot about how to take your, create your character, create your characters, create some animations within iClone, import them into Unreal, and get some animation done. And again, I know I went through this tutorial here at the speed of light. There's a lot of important concepts that you need to learn. But basically, that's about it for this tutorial. If you have any questions, check out our forums at forum.reallusion.com, and you can also email us and check out our website as well. So again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.